Bliana fihe cahar in áhalún lárna tíre an seo áte bhfuil poblach dánaí tar éis teach le chéile ó gach cearn den tír agus nach even an rudé. Hello, I'm Owen. Finn is my name, and I'm here to welcome you to the commentary and the live stream of the Sinn Féin Ard Fheis for 2024. We're here in Athlone, in the Technological University of the Shannon, Tús, and Galua by Tús. Le hócáidí an seo, we'll have a, as they say in Irish, tús má leathna haibre, a good start is half the work. But we're looking forward to an event here today where you'll have Republicans from right around the country discussing big ideas. We're preparing for getting ready for a general election. We have discussion around the plans Sinn Féin has to address the housing crisis, to make housing affordable, to make childcare affordable, and to address the cost of living crisis. We'll also have a whole range of motions regarding every issue under the sun, and that will be focusing on how we as a party can support workers, families and communities north and south. Ag tacu le aibrithóirí, le pobl, le tailig, agus is léir ón méid cinál rún atá an réimse leathan ábhar ó híomh talmhaíocht, ó híomh sláinte, ó híomh tithíochte, agus cuaram leanaíach go háirithe tá muid tar éis policy an úlmhíonach a sheoladh maidir le sin le déanaí leis an uair labhraí Claire Corran, agus tá a lán le play ag an ócáid seo, agus na mis díreach tar éis teacht ó bheith labhairt le gaolgóirí teacht le chéile nach even an rud é. A kind faoi conas níos mó i dhéanamh don Gaeilge listed an fortí agus i rialtas an seo agus ó chuí agus sin rud eile, so we'll also have discussion of the role the role that our ministers and the executive have in terms of progressing change and helping, like I say, workers, families, communities, and it's an exciting prospect to be here. I think I'm being joined by someone. I have a special guest. Is that's not Louise O'Reilly joining me? Welcome, Falter Road, Louise. Would you look at that? God, you never know who'll show up here. You're very welcome, Louise. Plonk the headphones on you there, you'll be grand.
Thank you, Owen.
Yeah, do you have to turn that on there? I think.
Hang on now.
There we go. I think you're gone live. Be careful what you say now. So.
Well, I'm always careful what I say, Owen. Excuse me.
Oh, that's it. Well, welcome. Oh, hold on.
Technical issues, folks.
Technical issues. There's
Bear
a wire
with us.
underneath.
Oh, excuse me.
How will we deal with this now?
Do you lift up your chair? I'll pull it.
Okay. Oh.
It's under the Okay. Now.
We're getting everything live here. We don't hide anything. Much as I've tried.
Oh, yes.
How are you, Louise?
Well, switch on the filters there that make me look 25. I'll have those. Thanks very much,
Owen.
Owen.
You look 25.
Oh, see, I'm going to stay here all night.
Well, here, Louise, you're excited for the Ard Fheis?
Yes, love the Ard Fheis. Absolutely love it. It's one of my favourite events of the year. Love a bit of crack. Great to catch up with comrades from all over the country. Lovely to see people travelling. Bit of an accident on the M50, so we know people are running a bit late. But yeah, really excited for it. I know Emma Sheeran is in place now. She's going to be chairing this session for us.
Oh, very good.
And we'll hear from some good speakers. It's a great chance. It's really good to see democracy in action. It's great. Oh.
There we are.
Emma's putting everyone through their paces now.
That's it. Has to be done.
In you go.
Very good. And and tell me a bit about the work you've been doing yourself and the Dáil recently. Any particular things you'd like to highlight while you're here?
Yes, well, okay. Well, I'll talk about legislation that I have drafted which will strengthen the Unfair Dismissals Act.
Brilliant.
So for workers who have been unfairly dismissed, it'll increase the awards that they can be given by the WRC, hopefully to a level that an employer will consider it as a deterrent. I've also been working on a really key piece of policy on the right to organise. So workers need access to their trade union. Trade unions need access to workers. That's how we get workplace democracy, decent jobs, fair wages, and that's what motivates me and gets me going.
It's great to hear.
We are the party of the working class.
This is it.
They look to us, they depend on us, they need us, and we will turn up for them. That's
fair
what we
play.
do.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. And it's about, and you'll see it today and tomorrow, ideas. How can we do better? How can we make change happen? And we see it in our reps like yourself and the Dáil and the Shannon and the Assembly. actively pursuing that change, and it's great to have an opportunity for members of the party to come up with their ideas and to share them here today. And people will see debates, people will see votes, you'll see sometimes people running in and out of the room because they're voting on members for the Ard Fheis. That's the kind of main democratic structure then for the party throughout the year between Ard Fheis to...
It is indeed. I'm a member of the Ard Fheis. I'm not electioneering, but I am running again.
I'll have to get every person who's running on now.
So we just have to list all the names. This is not RTE. Relax. We're better than that. We're better than that.
If anyone from RTE is listening, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, well, if Dahi and Moira are looking for a week off, I'm just saying.
There we go.
We could make ourselves available.
This is it. Yeah. I'll try not to fall over chairs next time. Very good. And
that's the great thing about the Ard Fheis, isn't it? It's because even me, I was years as a trade union organiser, but even that, when you hear people speaking and debating and they have ideas and they have things that really challenge you actually by times and challenge some preconceived notions, and people themselves actually have really good ideas about how to make their own lives better, and that's the beauty of the Ard Fheis. I know other parties, they've conferences and symposiums and stuff like that, where the members are expected to just go and listen, and that's grand, and there's a place for that too. But this is participatory, and that's really important. Everybody has a chance. It's one of the things that you'll often hear journalists remark about it, that it doesn't matter who you are. They'll look and they'll see Pierce Doherty or Conor Murphy or someone, and they're just queuing. And if they get the chance, they get the chance. But if the time runs out, the time runs out.
This is it.
And that's the way it is. And I like that. I love that about the Ard Fheis.
And anyone could say anything.
Yes.
And that's...
I'll be chairing later, so, anyone can't say anything.
Okay.
Everybody has to, anyone can say anything. But that's where the good ideas come from.
This is it,
people are, they're coming here because they want to share something with their comrades, they want to share something with their community, with the Republican community. I think it's just brilliant. And we also hear from people, rural, urban, young, old, men, women, it right across the spectrum. I think that's really good, and it's the lifeblood of the Ard Fheis as well.
Yeah, and people have spent weeks putting motions together, trying to work out how to word things in the way that best expresses the kind of view, negotiating at their common level, trying to work out can they get agreement to propose something, and the amount of kind of discussion that goes on even before the Ard Fheis. And I saw there are some emergency motions that have come in here, because that's when you miss the deadline, but there are issues that are so kind of, of the moment that respond to things that people weren't really clued in on before or that hadn't happened.
That's
exactly.
It,
and I know,
and that's the dynamic, being able to respond and being able to put something to the floor and have a debate on it, even at this stage, even though, obviously there's a lot of work goes in the run up to it, and at common level. I like that. I like when you sit down to decide your Ard Fheis motions, and you've got someone will come in and say, well, I think we should do something on workers' rights. Someone else comes in and says, well, actually, I think it should all be about the buses. And you're kind of negotiating, and you're looking and you're talking to other coming. That's what keeps the party going. That's what keeps it, and that's what keeps the debate lively, because every motion that's down means something to someone.
Exactly.
They've put their heart and soul into it, in making sure it's worded right, that it says everything that it needs to say, that it doesn't offend anyone, but that the meaning of it is very clear. And I think that's brilliant. I think that's and getting together with your common and being able to do that is excellent.
100%, yeah. They're still getting people into the room, and then we'll have an opening from Circa Clark, who's the local TD here in Longford Westmeath, and she's always delighted to have people coming to Athlone.
Oh God, yeah, she is. We got a great welcome last year now, so she set the bar high.
Oh, she did indeed. So we'll have to keep an eye now. We'll be sitting here taking notes. But it's a great gathering. And it's kind of the social side of it as well, and the sense of kind of meeting people you haven't seen in a while.
Yes. I did that walking in. I saw a couple of people who I haven't seen actually since the last Ard Fheis, and it's just lovely. It's actually nice to reconnect with people. And there's a whole rake of people who I probably only see, once or twice a year, and just people I only ever see at the Ard Fheis, and I'm always happy to see them. That's deadly.
100%. And I mean, there are people tuning in as well online from all over the place. I know last year we had people in watching from America, watching from England. We had journalists from different organisations watching in. I know Fionn Sheehan was watching at one point, so hello Fionn if you're watching. So it's great to have that kind of exposure for these people who aren't they're not in the Dáil every day. They're not they're not elected. These are people who they just have ideas and they want to be heard and they want a chance to put that forward. So it'll be exciting to have that and to have a chance to listen to that, and for the people who can't be here in person to get just a sense of the atmosphere, of the excitement, of the passion people have for the things they're putting forward, for whether it's whatever the topic of debate is, that they're having their say. And I think it's so important. So many people feel disenfranchised from politics in general, but to be able to come here, people you might not know before, people you might end up friends for life with.
Yes, absolutely. And people who'll be, you might see emotion on the Clár as something that you just go, right, I'm moved and I'm up and I'm going to speak, and and then someone will come down and say, I like that speech, and then all of a sudden you're having a conversation with someone from a different county about the thing that you both have in common, as well as being shinners, being at the Ardèche, being passionate about something. Yeah, that's excellent. And it is, you can't say it often enough, it is the lifeblood of the party, because without the Ardèche, you don't have that sense of community and coming together. And we really, we missed it during COVID.
Oh, we did.
I mean, online is grand, and, being able to participate online, and it was important that we were able to have, a gathering. But there's no substitute for in person, and having everyone coming together, and anyone watching in, I hope you're able to pick up on the atmosphere and the kind of the camaraderie that's in the room, but also the anticipation as well. And people are passionate about their subjects and about their motion, and they get nervous. I've put motions to the Ardèche. You get nervous when it's coming up and you're thinking, okay, well, how's it going to be received? And
this is it. Yeah, and they're It's such a different kind of platform. It's unique because you're talking to to people who they're all part of the same movement. You're not talking to a hostile crowd, but that almost means it means more to you. It makes more of a difference that you want them to be on side. You want them to get what you're trying to say.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's brilliant, and to be here in Athlone, a city with such history. I know it was Turlough O'Croher. I believe he was the High King of Ireland about 900 years ago. I know that because 900 years ago he built the city of Galway for the first time, the Gaelic town. So I'm from Galway. If that
and he hardly ever mentions
never,
that.
No,
never.
Best
You kept that very quiet. Where Galway, you say,
Galway,
right?
Which isn't far from Athlone now. So if people feel like they can pop off somewhere to have a look at Galway, I'd encourage that. But Athlone as well, Turlough O'Croher had a leading role building this, making sure it was a strong fortress, and here we are today, a strong bastion of republicanism for all to enjoy. There's someone fixing my microphone now.
It's all going on here.
What's happening? There we go. Lovely, thank you. The amount of staff involved here in making this event happen as well, it should be noted. There's a lot you don't see behind the scenes, and it's brilliant to have that kind of professionalism, like this event. The amount of people who are coming from all around the country to give them a good experience as well. And I'd certainly commend all the time.
And for the local organisation as well. On the one hand, it's a big honour to have the Ardèche in your home place, like it is. But then on the other hand, it is a lot of work. A huge amount. All of these people don't get here by accident with their credentials, with their pack, having registered, with the stage set out so professionally, with the commentators here, with the behind the scenes, the social media. All of that doesn't happen by accident, and a lot of that is done by volunteers and by the local coming. And on the one hand, it is a great honour. It's absolutely brilliant, and I know Sorka is delighted to have the Ardèche here again. But then on the other hand, it's a lot of work, and a lot of work, and it's worth it, because when everything comes together, it just I like it, and I see the boss now is on the stage, so
very good.
Straighten up and fly right now, right?
Should have worn a tie.
Yes, well, I've no tie on either, so here you go.
But we'll be starting any minute now. It's just kind of a sense of making sure everyone who's around is in the room, knows things are starting, kicking off, and is ready to get into the queue as well. They'll be queuing up soon to start to have their speak, as they say. So be cumad súlamach will Motoin rune of space agat the facial and chlor all Arlene. You can get the chlor online and see the motions that are being discussed. And if there's something that interests you, and feel free to get in touch on social media as well. Let us know what you're thinking, where you're watching from. Is there any speech that moved you, or is there any speech you really didn't agree with? Either way, we're open to whatever.
And that's the thing. Though you will see over the course of the Ardèche people who will disagree, but not fall out.
This is it.
We can disagree. We don't have to agree on every single thing. It would be weird if we did, but we debate. We're comradely. We're decent to each other. But there will be passionately held views on both sides of arguments, which is entirely appropriate. But listen in. Yeah,
That's it. And you might hear kind of, I don't know if you can hear it at home. There's lovely music going on in the background, lovely kind of Celtic, just neo-Celtic kind of stuff going. So it's a great vibe, great kind of modern trad, and it kind of reflects the fact that the Ard Fheis and Sinn Féin is keen to be part of that kind of revitalisation that's happening in terms of Irish language, that kind of thing that can be seen right across the country. I know we've had great successes now from the Oscars to everywhere.
Kneecap look like getting a nomination as well.
Yeah, and we also have the World Irish Dancing Championships are coming to Dublin next year as well, which haven't heard enough about in the news. But it'll be a brilliant event.
That's absolutely huge. The first time the World Irish Dancing Championships came to Dublin, they were held in UCD. It was back in the 90s, and I was working there at the time. And we didn't know there was any such thing as the World Irish Dancing Championships, and it was phenomenal. The number of people, we had no idea how many people to expect, and but the number of people, and they're athletes, they're dancers, they're athletes. It is like it's a full-time job for some people, but it's massive, and all of the music and the history and the heritage and all that surrounds it, really good. Yeah.
No, it's brilliant.
It'll be excellent for Dublin.
Yeah.
Up the dubs.
I won't say that myself, but you see, here we are respectfully disagreeing on things, but that's okay.
Well, Dublin's the capital, and that's brilliant.
Galway was the capital of culture of all of Europe there recently, although a lot
Briefly.
of people would rather not reflect on where the money went on that one. But sure, look, I won't get into controversy now. I'll leave that to people who are talking on the Ard Fheis floor.
We'll steer clear of controversy.
We will. We'll be model commentators,
yes,
I'm sure.
Absolutely. We won't say anything. We won't say
We're getting looks. But no, it's great to be here. It's great to be part of an event like this and to see, like I say, people gathering, people speaking. Oh, there we go. Bon Soltas.
Can everyone take their seats, please? Fáilte roimh ball, Curchery, Luach den Fheis, agus teachtaí ag Ard Fheis, Sinn Féin 2024. I would like to welcome all members, visitors, or members of the press and delegates to our Ard Fheis 2024. Bhfuil na hórdaithe seasta a rinneú tá siad le fáil tíbhastí de clúdú clár an Ard Fheis. Can I call for the standing orders to be adopted? You will find these inside the cover of the clár. Siúd a bhábhar? Siúd an aye? Gur maigah, the standing orders are now adopted. I'm now going to run through the proposed Cathaoirleach. Myself, Emma Sheeran, Linda Dillon, Louise O'Reilly, Rose Conway-Walsh, Padraig McLaughlin, Eamon Nolan and Mairead Farrell. Can I have a proposer for this list? And can I have a seconder? Siúd a bhábhar? Siúd an aye? The Cathaoirleach are accepted. Anish and Ciste Siúratha, the steering committee. The steering committee is located at the side of the hall here, and any queries relating to the clár should be relayed to them. And the proposed Ciste Siúratha are as follows: Brian Keane, Nora O'Reilly, Precious Umwale Callan, and Nuala McLernan. Can I have a proposer for this list? Can I have a seconder? Siúd a bhábhar? Siúd an aye? The steering committee are accepted. Now we have the tellers, and our proposed tellers are as follows: Ciara Downey, Michelle Shahid, Enzo Crothers, Jamie Connolly, Liam Kiernan, and Alan Power. Can I have a proposer for this list and a seconder? Siúd Ivaver, Siúd Inai. Again, our tellers are accepted. Anish and Clara, can I have a proposer and a seconder for the timetable for the Ard Fheis and the motions that we will debate? A proposer and a seconder. Siúd Ivaver, Siúd Inai, Gurmila Mayagav. We have a number of emergency motions. So in order to debate our emergency motions, we have to suspend standing orders temporarily in order for those to be debated. So the suspension of standing orders requires a 2/3 majority. Can I have a proposer to suspend the standing orders and a seconder? Siúd Ivaver, Siúd Inai. So that means the suspension of our standing orders is adopted. So we can now vote on the emergency motions being accepted as part of the Clara for the Ard Fheis, and you'll find them in your delegates' packs. They're on yellow sheets. Siúd Ivaver, Siúd Inai, and they are accepted. We also have to adopt a number of supplementary motions onto the Clara, and these were motions that were properly submitted, but they were accidentally omitted from the main Clara due to a technical error. They are on the green sheets in the delegates' packs. Can I have a proposer for this and a seconder? And again, I take a vote. Siúd Ivaver, Siúd Inai, Gurmila Mayagav. Those supplementary motions are now included. Can I now have a proposer and a seconder for the readoption of standing orders? Gurmila Mayagav, Siúd Ivaver, Siúd Inai. Those standing orders are now readopted. So Tamud Reanish, Hon Tosnu or Clara a Ard Fheis. Can I remind delegates that Ard Corlia ballot boxes are located in the catering area, and delegates are asked to cast their vote as soon as possible. The ballots close at 3 o'clock tomorrow. And before we proceed any further, I want people to take heed of the safety instructions. So the Order of Malta is on site should anyone require assistance. There are first aid boxes in the main hall and the registration building. Fire exits are clearly marked around the buildings, and should an alarm sound, take guidance from stewards and proceed to the clearly marked assembly areas. And at this point, I'd also like to inform you all that there is a fundraising event this evening in the Dark Horse. Satanta Folk are playing, and there's a €10 entry fee which is payable at the door. Aharja, as you're all aware, 2024 has been an extremely busy year for the party, both north and south so far. We obviously had the Southern European and local elections and fought a snap Westminster election in the north. Finances across the party are tight, and with the 26 county general election imminent, a successful national draw couldn't be more crucial. So could we ask for a big push across all areas to raise finances in your own constituencies, as well as for the overall campaign? At this point, I'd like to welcome the opening speaker, our local TD for Longford Westmeath, Sorcha Clark.
Acarja, Fáilte Riv Goléir Arash Godi on Irvi. It is a privilege to have the Sinn Féin Ard Fheis back in the Technological University of the Shannon in County Westmeath, the county I very proudly call home. I want to start by thanking everybody who has been involved in organising this Ard Fheis. It is not an easy task, and those countless hours of hard work need to be acknowledged, and I want to do that now. To our delegates, to our visitors and to our guests, and also to those who are joining us on our live stream, welcome to the 2024 Sinn Féin Ard Fheis, where we will discuss and debate important motions from Sinn Féin structures across the 32 counties. And I want to give a very warm and a very special welcome to Councillor Julie McCourt and to Councillor David Jones for their first Ard Fheis as newly elected members of Westmeath County Council. This is our first Ard Fheis since Michelle O'Neill became the first nationalist First Minister in the North, a First Minister for all. This shows that real change is possible and that we are living through that right now. In the South, we are on the countdown to a general election. And this weekend, we will set out the type of change that a Sinn Féin government would deliver if the people give us that opportunity. Sinn Féin would deliver a government that finally puts ordinary people first. And over the course of this Ard Fheis, we will outline our plans, including how Sinn Féin will make housing affordable, how we will deliver affordable childcare and truly tackle the cost of living crisis, how we will support families, workers and our own communities, as well as our plans to begin preparing for Irish unity. This upcoming election will be a clear choice between positive leadership, ambition and hope from Sinn Féin, or the continued failure, spin and more of the same from Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. Acarja, I hope you enjoyed the weekend. Participate in the discussions and in the debates, and enjoy the exhibitors and the fringe events also. Sinn Féin Abu.
So the first section on our Ard Fheis Clár is the motions on party building, which includes motions 1 through to 15. So you'll find this in the section labelled Party Activism and Campaigning. I'm now calling for speakers to this section. Can I remind delegates that if motion 3 passes, motion 15 will automatically fall as they are contradictory. Motion 10 is a proposed amendment to party rules. So, Anish Tan Jasperak Osculcha, William Cunis, Sahala, and could delegates who wish to address this section of the Ard Fheis please form a queue near the podium. I want to ask delegates to identify themselves and the common Corley Cantor or Corley Cuig that they are representing, and ask them to be brief and to speak to the motion specifically. Go ahead.
Declan Kearney Ard Corley agus we're gad fáilte a charges a comradí hagan luan anocht. Comrades, friends, this has been another year of growth for Sinn Féin. Party members have engaged with citizens across the island promoting our vision of a new and better Ireland. In recent weeks, activists have embarked on an ambitious programme of delivering our transformative housing policy, a home of your own, to every home in this state. This has been a mammoth undertaking by our organisation. But comrades, it has put us where we need to be, in the heart of local neighbourhoods and town lands in this state. And the general election is imminent. It will be a defining election, be sure of that. However, it will also present our party with the opportunity to set out a governmental agenda for change in this state, and one which delivers on behalf of workers and families. And we've already begun setting out our stall with policy launches on housing, migration, childcare, and yesterday, our alternative budget launch. Be in no doubt, whenever that election is called, Sinn Féin will be ready. And we will approach this campaign on the front foot, positive, energetic and future-focused. Seismic change is happening across the island. Michelle O'Neill's election as the First Minister for all in the North, coupled with Sinn Féin becoming the largest party in the Assembly, Council and in terms of representation at Westminster, all demonstrate the political alignment which is taking place. The opportunities are immense, and these can become beachheads for us from which to drive forward even greater significant political change. A unity referendum is on the political horizon, and we must be ready for that. And all of this means that we have to be fit for purpose. So we need to continuously examine our organisational structure and make improvements to fully maximise our membership's potential. Debate and discussion is live in Sinn Féin, but every meeting has to be a forum to internalise our strategic objectives. Critical, fraternal debate has to be a constant within our party, because we're at our best when constructively thrashing out ideas and the implementation of strategy. But we can always do better. So it's essential that the party listens and engages with our activists, and I say this very clearly, in more efficient and responsive ways. After the local and European elections in June, the National Officer Board commissioned an extensive review process, and the recommendations from that have been put into an implementation plan. That work has already begun. Progress reports have been delivered to the Ard Fheis and elsewhere. And throughout that process, criticisms were made, but the party leadership has listened. So a step change has commenced, comrades, and now all of us have to step up and play our part. No dynamic organisation is ever static. We must constantly look at our structures, internal communication, policy-making processes, and our membership model, because structure follows strategy. We have the right political strategy. However, our membership structures must also be adaptable and flexible to match the challenges. Therefore, Acharja, I would strongly encourage delegates to support Rún Iveraheen, Motion 1, the establishment of a commission to review our structures, our internal democracy and our membership. But I would also strongly encourage delegates to reject Motions 5 and 10. And this request is simply on the basis that both of these motions are unworkable. We know the proposers drafted these motions with the best of intentions, but their practical application is simply not implementable on a national basis. Instead, I would encourage those well-intentioned comrades to engage constructively with the proposed Commission as an important and a key vehicle for how we help to drive our party forward to achieve constitutional change and a new united Ireland for the many. Gora Maigav.
Smisha Nicola Nuvrogain, Billy Reid Cumming, Asanomi. Acharja, it's a privilege to introduce the first motion to this year's Ard Fheis. While it's always a pleasure to meet up with comrades from around the country, the Ard Fheis is much more than just a media or social event. Our party's strength is our membership. Our activists on the ground doing the hard grassroots work is a foundation stone that a fair, free, new and united Ireland will be built on. Today, the future of our party is in your hands. The motions that will be voted on today and tomorrow will dictate the policies and principles that we are guided by over the next year, as we head into elections in the south and continue to fight the British government austerity so we can deliver for people in the north. It's an immense responsibility, so I would urge all of you to consider each motion carefully, listen to the speakers and discuss the options with other comrades before casting your vote. That our first section in motion is on party activism and campaigning. Acharja, we have done incredible work to get to where we are today. Over the past few decades, Sinn Féin has gone from strength to strength. And in recent years, we have secured the First Minister position in the north, broken the tired two-party oligarchy in the south, and we've become the largest party across the country. The structures that held the party together have served us well, but we must always be open to different ways of doing things. This is a new phase of the struggle, and new challenges require new approaches. Our goal, as ever, remains the same: a new and united Ireland, a place where young people don't have to leave the country to find work, where housing is a right, not a privilege, and where governments act in the interests of the people and not private corporations. Society is evolving, and our party structures must evolve with it, in order to harness the potential of our incredibly dedicated members and activists and to best equip them to achieve those goals. The proposed Commission is the first step in that direction, and one we should all get behind. Movements like ours cannot afford to grow complacent or stale. It is said that a revolution is a struggle between the future and the past. Let us step boldly into the future. I commend and support the motion. Garmila Miagav.
Chief Accordia, Smisha Kahla Muraku, O Cumni Clary, as Clundalcon Hui. Accordia sa Cumradahe. Buahium Lerchvi Rune Shay, Modula Capacon sa 40, Difficult Gailge, August Dasher Hor Gailgan 40. Tomich Taka Eg Poinche, Gowill on Rune Kane Show Clorna Hor Dasher, Marvieg or Dashner River. Ag Fos, Nema Chick Jane of Barthurer or Mreher, Mar Dirch Nafina, Trod or Rev. Ma Tomich Diarera Foing, Ilgus a 40, Ni more down the hail of Show Colina. Ni more freshen, on Pulsey, the Gailun 40, a Cora Vime, Marby Glocke, Gordesh, Fish, Jeg. August and Pulsey, Gailge, on 40 Lesh. A Glocke, Nordesh, Kana. If we are serious about our national language, Gailge, the adoption of Motion 6, and more importantly its implementation, is an essential prerequisite. Leverdol a Cumradhe, Glockigi le Rune Shay, agus Gocile Rune son the Gailge. Gurmi Maga Bacorja.
Garrod O'Lee o Cushba Hui, a kind fair Rune de. Garrod O'Lee is the name from Dublin or McLaughlin Cow coming, talking about motion number 10. Now, I accept a lot of what was said about motion number 1, but our motion really is only about bringing the party back to the way it was before the new constitution came in a few years ago. One of the unintended consequences of bringing the constitution in was that the Dublin Cúige was gutted. Previously, we had a very important forum where you'd have all the activists coming from all different workplaces discussing issues in their areas. We'd know what's happening in Dublin West. We could learn lessons about what they were doing out in Tala. It was a hugely important forum for the activists, but it's all gone now. There's still an officer board, but for years now the officer board of the Cúige has been mainly made up of either people who work full-time for the party or elected officials. So the activists have been locked out to a large extent of the discussions. And the discussions were phenomenal. We used to have councillors, TDs there. We'd have reports from the north. We'd be able to bring these discussions then back to our workplaces, back to our communities, whether it was about whatever, immigration, housing, whatever it was. We'd have all the information to hand. But it's all gone now. You can see as well, we had a 10-year plan from 2017 that talked about electoral work and campaigning work, and we had to do the two of them strongly. Now, the electoral work has forged ahead, but the campaigning work hasn't. And the reason, again, is the activists not being part and parcel, because a lot of the campaigning comes from the bottom. If anybody remembers the water charges, it was local areas that started doing that and built up to a massive movement. It's the same with a lot of these campaigns. So we're asking you to vote for motion 10 to bring the Cúige back to the way it used to be. It's not a radical thing. This is the way it operated for years. We need to have the discussions. For instance, we're an oil nation. We used to have an airline, a shipping line, and a ferry service. They're all privatised. We had 3 banks, industrial, agriculture, and the TSB. They're all privatised. So we need to have discussions among the activists about how we bring these things back, and we can bring these discussions into our communities. But unless you vote for number 10, we'll have to wait a year and a half before it happens, and it's crucial that it happens now. I don't think Coolock Says No would have got off the ground if we'd been meeting on a regular basis, because we have comrades in Coolock. We had people in East Wall who dealt with racism, so we could have shared all the different ideas. We need to have the activists meeting together, so I'd urge us to vote for motion 10. Gormagiv.
Accordia is Misha Rory Doyle, Roscommon Corla Cantor. I rise today in support of motion number 7. Sinn Féin, at its heart, is a party rooted in a deep tradition of grassroots party activism reaching across a broad cross-section of Irish society. It stands to reason that we should harness the collective wisdom of our activists when it comes to the development of our party's policies. From fumbling on immigration to the failed referenda, these are missteps that could have been avoided with better consultation with our members as part of our policy development process. The enhanced communication mandated by Motion 7 is a good first step in achieving this aim, and I therefore urge you to vote yes on this vital motion. Gur Magat.
Carja, Alan Donnelly, Volunteer James Hasn't Cumming, Dublin West, and represent Dublin West Corla Cantor. Speaking in favour of motion number 3 on your Clark. First, I want to thank you, comrades, for the opportunity to speak here today. We gathered here today not just as members of a political party, but as guardians of the values, principles and the future of our country. Today I stand before you to urge your support for a motion that is not only timely but absolutely necessary, one that reaffirms our commitment to democracy within our party and ensures that our collective voice is always heard on the most critical matters. The motion before us is straightforward. This Ard Fheis mandates the Ard Corla to call a special delegate conference to determine the party's position on any future constitutional amendment referenda. The party's position on any such constitutional amendment can only be determined by a simple majority of voting delegates at the special conference or at an Ard Fheis. Why is this motion so important? Because it speaks to the very heart of who we are as a party. Sinn Féin has always been a movement rooted in the will of our people. Our strength lies in our unity and in the diversity of our voices and in our unwavering commitment to a democratic process that is transparent, inclusive and representative. In recent years, we have seen a significant impact that the constitutional referendum can have on the very fabric of our society. The two most recent referenda have highlighted the profound responsibility we carry in shaping our nation's future. Yet they have also exposed areas where we as a party can do better and must do better. Mistakes were made and we must have the humility to acknowledge that. But more importantly, we must take concrete steps here to ensure that such mistakes are not repeated. This motion is about accountability. It's about ensuring that our position on any future constitutional amendments is not just a position of a few, but the collective stance of our entire party. It guarantees that our policy on such crucial matters is determined by a simple majority of voting delegates reflecting the true democratic will of Sinn Féin. We cannot afford to be divided or uncertain on such issues of such magnitude. By supporting this motion, we are saying that every voice within our party matters, every delegate has a role to play in shaping our future, and that we will always stand by the principles of democracy and transparency. This motion does not limit our leadership. It empowers it by ensuring that it acts with the full mandate of the party. It does not weaken our resolve. It strengthens it by rooting our decisions in the broad consensus of our membership. And it does not stifle debate. It encourages it by creating a space where ideas can be fully explored, discussed and decided upon by those who represent our movement, the grassroots. Comrades, we have a duty to ourselves and our members and to the people of Ireland. Let us honour that duty by supporting this motion. Let us ensure that when we speak on matters of constitutional importance, we speak with one clear and united voice, reflecting the will of our party and the hopes of the people that we represent. Together we can strengthen Sinn Féin, and together we can build a future that is just, fair and true to our values. Good evening, Margaret.
Good evening. Kevin Brunick, James Connolly, Common, KR County Tipperary. We are calling on this Ardèche to support motion 15 to put in place a method that includes all members in full and open discussion on any and all future amendments on the 26th County Constitution. Due to COVID, we have resorted to online meetings at Common, Coracanta and Coolga levels meetings. In the most recent amendment, there was no engagement with the membership. We believe that was a mistake. We should continue to differentiate our party from others by being led from the ground up. We think that before the Ard Fheis decides a position on future amendments, all members need to have an input. Thank you.
Accord Martin Brown, Pierce McCann coming Cashel County, and I want to speak on motions 3 and 15. There's a good reason why the members of the James Connolly Coming in Care has submitted this motion. And we've admitted and the party has, but we got a call on the referendum wrong, and there was reasons for which has been expressed loud and clear by party members all around the country. The decision was taken without adequate consultation with the members, and members felt as though their views weren't taken on board. And I say this because speaking with members, the overwhelming impression that we got was that there was an uneasiness with the way both referendums were worded, how they would be interpreted and the future ramifications, both legally and otherwise. Of course, both were rejected by the public and many of our members. It damaged the view, in our case, of potential voters. What we don't want is Ard Fheis to drift away from grassroots members, because that is how it's been perceived at the minute. So I support the measures that are being proposed in these motions and to ensure that there's a steadfast mechanism in place where all members have the ability and the opportunity to voice their opinion on changes to the 26th County Constitution before the party takes a position on any future referendums. We are a grassroots party and that must never be taken lightly. Can
I ask the Constitution to identify the last speaker at this point?
Paul Donnelly speaking on behalf of the Dublin West Coracanta. Brian Keane warned me. Alan Donnelly has used some of the Donnelly quote at times, so I'll be brief. Comrades, I'm speaking and in support of motion 3. I've always prided myself as particularly talking to people in our community and Sinn Féin in that we are rooted in our membership, and our membership is rooted in the community, that the party's core principle is the voice of the membership, and particularly at Ardèche. I believe that the motion strengthens that voice of the membership. It will also strengthen our political campaigning position on the constitutional referendum. So, comrades, I think the motion itself is very clear, it's very understandable, in this time, that particularly after the last referendum that we had, that we give that voice back to the membership. So, comrades, I'm asking you to support motion number 3. Gurmagat.
Eva Carja, Sarah Holland, Devlin Plunkett, Comet Rathfarnham. Speaking in favour of motion number 9, quite a lot of these motions are about the voices of our members, are about participation in the formation of party policy. Our party has always been grassroots-led. We have our roots in the radical resistance of colonialism, but policy positions haven't always reflected that radical base. We're led by the principles of socialism and the republicanism of Wolfe Tone. The voices of our members need to be heard, especially in matters of policy formation, inequality and social justice. Vote in favour of motion number 9. Gurmayagav.
Jim Monaghan, Charlie McGlade, Common, Drimna, Dublin. I'm asking you to support motion 14. It's a very short motion, but it deals with an important matter. What sort of party do Sinn Féin, we want Sinn Féin to be in the future? Sinn Féin was set up to be a membership-led party. The party activists were in direct contact with the people and could represent their needs and aspirations. And Ard Fheis was only dealing with a few motions, so there were plenty of time to discuss and take on board ideas. But look at this, Ard Fheis. We're trying to deal with 187 motions. It's impossible to discuss or take on board other ideas because you've only 3 minutes speaking time. Your motion will have been discussed by the Common, but that's too small a body to have many ideas. The Corla Counter and Cuiga have so much on their agenda, you'd be lucky to get a hearing. But party activists need to be more involved in political discussions. Activists are involved in fundraising, newsletters and election work. But they also need to be involved in learning politics. They need to be able to argue with supporters and opponents about what Sinn Féin believes in. They need to be able to hold their own in arguments about local politics, national politics and world politics. The main purpose of activists is to win over people to Sinn Féin. We need to have a time and a place where the only things on the agenda is 2 or 3 things we want to discuss and get to understand. Cuiga Plus meetings have been suggested, and that would be a start, but the Cuiga in Dublin is not performing the role of educating activists in discussion on problems that arise. What's really needed is meetings with a veteran or experienced person who has good politics and who helps the activists to analyse the problems in a socialist context. Discussion where everyone can take part and be listened to becomes political education. That empowers the whole group and leads to better understanding of the problems and the possible solutions. There's a lot of activists who would like to be involved, and it would add a lot of sparkle to Sinn Féin if they were. I'm thinking of things like immigration, climate change, the North, Gaza and the Ukraine war, and gender politics. Activists are asking, what's gender politics all about, and how do we deal with it in a socialist society? The convener would have researched that and even brought someone who can explain and answer questions. I want Sinn Féin to remain an activist-based party, and to enable this, provision has to be made for good political discussion within the party. Support motion 14.
Callum Atkinson, Nellie Gifford, Cumming, Phibsborough, and I know I'm up against time pressure, so I'd just like to make an amendment to motion 9, and I know others have already spoken on the motion. So after discussion, we propose to delete the final bullet point in motion 9, which is already covered in motion 3, to facilitate the passage of motion 9 more generally, and to similar theme to the rest of this section. It's about trying to fully harness the potential of our membership in policy making, and I think this CLAR is evidence of the kind of breadth of knowledge right across the party, and we need to do more to harness that potential. Gur Mágat.
Gora Mayagiv. So the debate is now over. So I'm going to put motions 1 to 15 to the floor. I want to remind people at this stage to indicate clearly with their cards when I'm asking for a vote. And just as we have heard there, motion 9 has now been amended. If motion 3 is passed, that's going to mean that motion 15 will automatically fall. Motion 9 has now been amended, so I will take a vote on the amendment, and then if the amendment passes, I will take a vote on the substantive motion. And I want to remind people that motion number 10 is an amendment to party rules. So I'm going to go through the motions in sequence. So at the start, Ruan Avarahian, if ever, in I, Tashi Glacta, Ruan Avarado, if ever, in aye. Tá sí glactú. Ruan ever a tree, if ever. In aye. Tá sí glactú. Ruan ever a ceathair, if ever.
Hello.
In aye.
I tell you, I'm here just to
ever
provide a bit of
cuig,
context for what's happening
if
now.
ever.
So what you're seeing on
In
screen
aye.
is the vote that's happening on motions that to do in particular with the first section, which was about party activism and campaigning. So these are motions that would have been brought forward by different common structures, Corley Cantor, the Ard Fheis. There are different structures within the party, whether it's local branches or the nationwide organisation, and the idea being to improve the way we do work. So, for example, you would have heard some speeches there about making sure, for example, any decision on future referendums involves consultation with members before a decision is made. Obviously, an acknowledgement of what was acknowledged a good number of months ago by Mary Lee MacDonald and by Sinn Féin, that we didn't have that proper engagement with members and root our decisions in that. So that's why there is, and you'll see people putting their hands up, putting their little voting cards up, demonstrating that they want to change the way we do things. And as you would have heard, to make sure that the grassroots activists are at the heart of who we are, because we are a members-based party. And so it's been interesting to hear different people speaking about that. But also you'll see when you see badges put up, I have a badge here, so you'll see people doing this thing of waving their little badge around. Those badges indicate your status here if you're a delegate or just a member. So if you're a delegate, that means your common or your structure has authorised you to come here and vote on their behalf. Every common structure has the right to vote, but not every member. So members make their decisions at common level, and that's represented here by their delegates. But members are fully entitled to take part in the Ard Fheis. That's why you'll see some people not putting their hand in the air. They're here to take part, to, listen to debate, to maybe speak on debates, but not to vote, because that's reserved for the delegates. So that's the distinction of what you're seeing. Some people putting hands in the air, and you'll see some of these badges are different colours. Depending on that as well, there'll be other people in here with different badges. So just to kind of give a bit of context of what's happening, and you'll see that after every session of debate, there will be a vote. Nothing happens here without a full vote, because this is the democratic structure of the party. This Ard Fheis is the opportunity for members of Sinn Féin to express their democratic will, and that becomes party policy, that becomes the rule of the party. And so the Ard Fheis, the leadership, the public representatives of Sinn Féin are bound to reflect the view agreed at these Ard Fheisina. And like I say, there's an Ard Fheis every year. And there are also other ways to engage members, and again that's been the focus of the debate so far this evening. And you'll see everyone has their little card there up at the top table down on the floor below.
Use this brief silence to wish Louise O'Reilly a happy birthday. Wants to start.
Isn't that nice? Labra Honrich Louise. And she was just with me and no one told me it was her birthday. I feel mortified.
So I've just been advised Tasha Culture.
Oh,
so we'll now move
so
on
one of the votes there actually lost. So again, an indication not everything here just goes the way people want it to go all the time. So I don't know who put that forward, but I've been there myself, supporting motions that were voted against, and all you can do is shake the hand of your opponents. We're all on the same side here, but we have disagreements, obviously, but we do it with respect and with friendship. And so it's what you're seeing now is exactly that. It's the vote. So it's on a vote ar siúl faoi láthair, mar dúirt mé tá teachtaíán thar cheann agris le nó agriochtaí le stigean pártaí, le stigean structúr nós mar deartha cumann, so sinna ag an level is ísle in San Cantor áitiúil, an sin tá cór le Cantor le haid beidir dál Cantor nó chunda le, agus an sin tá an Ard Fheis atá tufa ag an Ard Fheis don bhliain. Agus sin siad san cinithe i rith na bliana, agus an sin déantar táchan ríis ag deir na bliana ar an Ard Fheis sin, so ba sin ar siúil níos déanaí freisin, tá daoine ag dul amach chun vóta chathamh, tá cinál ballot paper mar deartha ag gatainna chun a chur isteach in san bosca, agus a rá, ok, tá mis gur meach an duine seo mar anadaí ar an Ard Fheis, agus an Ard Fheis níl sé díreach na daoine tá tufa inniu, tá anadaíthe freisin ag cuaigí éagsúla, so chomáile cuman agus cóirla cantar tá cuaige agus sin cinál mar is léir cuaige an tír agus so tá na structúr sin go léir an agus tá ionadíocht acu ar an level is níos irde so tá dína an le gach cuaige ar an Ard Comhairle freisin. So what I've been explaining there is, as well as the representatives who will be elected here for the membership to represent the membership at this Ard Fheis on the Ard Comhairle for the coming year, there are also representatives for the Cuaige structures, so they're the provincial structures, along with the Comhairle Cantor and the Common. So there are many different ways people can funnel into the decision-making process, but like you've heard here, people have different views on how to structure the party, how to make sure that members' voices are heard, and that's been the focus so far. The motions are still being debated and are still being voted upon, and we're just about to move on shortly to, I believe it is Las Uachtaráin Sinn Féin who's going to be speaking next. Our Vice President Michelle O'Neill. This is her first Ard Fheis, of course, as First Minister, and that will be an exciting moment for her to speak here.
First Minister
Here you
Michelle
go.
O'Neill to make
Good night, Liv. You're my welcome.
JD. Fáilte óbhfuil ag a háirde dahas orma bheith and seo an acht. How great is it to be back in Athlone this evening? A lot has changed since we last met. This time last year, the return of the Power Sharing institution seemed remote, if not hopeless. But we didn't give up, and Sinn Féin intensified our efforts to ensure that the election outcome and our mandate was respected. And I am therefore proud to be back here this evening as First Minister. My election was very much a moment of equality and a moment of progress, and for the very first time in the history of the North, an Irish nationalist, a Republican, is First Minister. What was unthinkable to my parents' and grandparents' generation is now a reality. Now, I said from day one that I would serve everyone equally, that I will be a First Minister for all, that all four parties of the executive must deliver an ambitious agenda for change. And standing here this evening, I can tell you I am even more determined than ever. Over the past 8 months, I have been working across key sectors, working with local communities, from Primroy to the Shankill Road, from Newcastle to the Bogside, to ensure that their voices are heard in the corridors of power, and also that the executive responds to their needs. The four executive parties are working together with a unity of purpose, and we are determined to deliver good public services, good governance, economic growth, and strong communities that we all depend on. Our work aims to improve lives, build prosperity, create hope, and create opportunity. It's also welcome to have the return of the North-South Ministerial Council for vital all-Ireland cooperation. So in our first 8 months, we've ensured fairer pay for public sector workers. We've begun delivering on affordable childcare. We produced a plan to protect and realise the potential of Lough Neagh. We've published a draft programme for government. We've launched a plan to end violence against women and girls. And we've advanced the shared education campus in Omagh. But I can tell you there is much more to be done. Our Sinn Féin ministers are heading up the main economic departments, allowing us to drive economic change. Economy Minister Conor Murphy is building a stronger, fairer economy, delivering well-paid jobs. He's prioritising regional balance, investment in areas like the North West. He's launched the McGee Task Force to expand the numbers there. Conor's reforming Invest NI. He's promoting the advantage of dual market access. He's developing the All-Ireland economy. He's promoting workers' rights, and he's focusing on skills and apprenticeships. Our Finance Minister, Dr. Kiva Archibald, has prioritised fair pay for our public sector workers. Kiva's negotiated a better funding arrangement for future budgets, and this will all help to provide the public services that people expect and that the people deserve. She continues to fight the case for proper investment in our public services. John O'Dowd in the Department of Infrastructure is improving the planning system, allowing us to deliver road projects including the Cookstown-Enniskillen bypasses and the Newry Relief Road. He has recommended the commencement of the long overdue and much needed A5. He is taking forward the All-Ireland Rail Review, improving connectivity across the island, and by decarbonising transport, John's department can assist transition towards net zero. So there's been a change of government in London, and that offers us an opportunity to improve Irish-British relations. However, the jury is certainly still out on how this new British government will live up to its commitments set out in the Good Friday Agreement. Their initial actions demonstrate more of the same, failed austerity and broken promises, and this simply isn't good enough. Cutting winter fuel payments for older people is wrong, and the Executive is united against it. We will continue fighting for investment for public services, which have been decimated by 14 years of British Government austerity. So this new British Government must contribute to how devolution will evolve over time rather than retreat. And the financial limitations that have been placed upon the Executive restrict our ability to be able to act. So further financial powers are required, but it all points to one thing, that it's only through governing ourselves can we build a better future. All powers and all decisions should be taken here at home on this island. The Derry-Strabane and City deal is a game changer for the North West. Belfast and Derry deserve these city and growth deals, but so too does the Mid-South West deal and the Causeway Coast and Glens. So we are calling on the British Government to live up to their commitments and to invest in these areas to promote regional balance. Casement Park should have been developed as part in time for the Euro 2028 competition. We should have maximised the opportunity to create jobs, boost tourism and showcase the very best of Belfast, the North and the island of Ireland. So Harja, let there be no doubt, Casement Park will be built. This is an Executive and a programme for government commitment. So both the Irish Government and the British Government have committed to its redevelopment, and we will work with the GAA and with both governments to establish a first-class stadium for Gaelic games in Ulster. With Acna now in place, we need implementation of the Irish Language Commissioner and the delivery of the Irish Language Strategy. Lana Mesh, Alesh and Obershin. The repeal of the Legacy Act must now be delivered in full. Ard welcomes the announcement that the Finucane family have secured a public inquiry into the killing of their beloved husband and father, and we commend Geraldine and the Finucane family, including our friend and colleague John. You have been unwavering in your determination, and we will continue to support you in your journey for truth and justice. Harja, over the summer there were racist attacks and intimidation on our streets, and this is totally unacceptable. As political leaders, we will continue to face down division, sectarianism and racism, and we will not be deterred from building an inclusive future for all who live here. Hope will always win over hate. We always stand stronger whenever we are united. I want to again commend Ard and all of our activists for their continued solidarity with the people of Palestine. So from the Ard again this evening, we once again call on the international community to do more, to end the genocide, to end the humanitarian catastrophe. There must be a ceasefire now. Harja, earlier this year we fought a very successful Westminster election, electing 7 strong Irish MPs, making Sinn Féin the largest party in local government, in the Assembly and at Westminster. Now we all know in politics things can ebb and flow. In the lead up to the Assembly election, with many challenges and unpredictability and the political situation being very uncertain, we refused to be defined by that. We rallied our support, we communicated our vision, and only a few weeks later we witnessed historic success at the polls. This demonstrates that Sinn Féin can reaffirm our mission and that change can happen. Sinn Féin is the catalyst for change across this island, and we're going into this Ard weekend ready to fight the general election when it's called. We must engage with communities about the change that Sinn Féin will bring. We will deliver a government that will put people first, and that is needed now more than ever. To an Ireland that is stronger, fairer and united. Ard Fheis, together we will offer people a choice for a better future. Gur míle maith agah.
The next section is Rural Development, Agriculture and the Marine, and motions 16 to 29. We'll also be taking supplementary motion 1, and this is on the green sheet in your delegate packs. So I'm going to call for speakers on this section now to come forward. William.
Martin Kenny, Sinn Féin TD for Sligo Leitrim and spokesperson on agriculture and rural affairs. Productive agriculture is a major part of rural Ireland. However, it is not everything. A great deal of people live in rural communities that are not engaged in agriculture. For centuries, Irish people have lived in dispersed rural communities close to the land and close to nature. Today, we see a drift towards more urbanisation, and while that is well and fine, many rural communities are suffering from depopulation and have become the victims of poor infrastructure, education, health and social services. I firmly believe that areas of Ireland with the most potential are our rural regions. They require investment and planned supports to bring them into the 21st century. Of course, we all know that the family farm has been the centre of rural life for generations. However, the viability of farming is continually under pressure. We in Sinn Féin want to establish a commission on the future of the family farm in order to look at each sector and plan for long-term viable future for the family farm so that more young people can choose agriculture as a way of making their living and sustaining their family farming traditions. This commission will include many who are experts and bring ideas who can turn around the fortunes of agriculture. Farmers themselves need to be part of that conversation because we recognise that they are the real experts in this area. The price which farmers receive for their produce is key to the viability of rural communities. The state has a role to play as a regulator to guarantee a fair price for quality produce. The state also has a role to play in planning a long-term funded schemes that will protect the viability of farming, and where necessary, funding the public goods that's both social and environmental that farming provides. Many in the sector have employment off the land just to keep their heads above water, and this is why it is crucial that we develop employment opportunities in our rural towns and villages for people across the state and across the entire island. Young people are better educated than ever before and have more options to consider and more viable ways of making a living. And many of them want to raise their children where they were brought up, to send them to school, same school as they went to. They want them to see them play for the same football club as they played for. They understand better than most that close-knit rural communities have a social value as well as economic opportunity. Digital infrastructure like broadband and communication services are essential in our rural areas. Opportunities around the green economy, particularly renewable energy, have a major role to play in the future of rural Ireland. Nearly a century of failed housing policy now means housing is a major problem in every part of this island. People must have the opportunity to live and flourish in their rural communities. We must give people the option to build on their own homeland. Our border region has been particularly negatively impacted by economic decline and the difficulty of two jurisdictions following an unnatural frontier. Indeed, the impacts of Brexit on rural communities and farming communities in the north has been a particular hammer blow. Of course, closer cross-border cooperation and indeed the preparation for unity will be critical to address all of these issues. Recently at the ploughing, where we had 3 hot days in September, which was very unusual, I hosted an event where a panel of speakers discussed the future of farming and rural sustainability in a new united Ireland. Just as the European Union and the Common Agricultural Policy is central to agriculture and rural development, the EU is also central to seed funding that new united Ireland. And as we move forward to this, it is our responsibility to communicate policies which protect the environment, offer opportunities and sustainability for rural communities to grow and thrive in that new, modern, united Ireland. Go míle maith agaibh.
If speakers can stick to time, because we have quite a queue forming to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak.
Gurmagat, Declan McAleer, Milligan Hart, Sinn Féin Common, Lamacroy Tyrone, and Sinn Féin's spokesperson agriculture in the 6 counties. Sinn Féin remains steadfast in our demand that the British Government fully replace the EU funding that was lost due to Brexit, particularly for our farmers and rural communities. Whilst we welcome the funding for 2024-25, however, the future of farm funding beyond this is uncertain and will depend on decisions made by the British Government. This funding is critical to sustaining the rural economy and protecting over 25,000 farm families in the north. Our farmers need certainty, clarity and stability on future farm support to plan for challenges ahead. The north did not vote to leave the EU. Before Brexit, EU direct payments made up over 80% of farmers' annual income, providing a vital safety net that allowed them to produce safe, affordable food whilst protecting the environment and ensuring animal welfare. The ongoing impact of British Government austerity is still being felt across rural communities, and with the new Labour government continuing on the same path, it is clear there is no real difference between the two when it comes to protecting rural livelihoods. The key rural issues report commissioned by DAERA, the Department in the North, highlights that agriculture is the dominant business in areas more than an hour from Belfast, where nearly half of businesses are linked to farming, forestry or fishing. The prosperity of rural communities is inseparable from the health of these industries. Farmers today face immense challenges: Brexit, climate change, animal disease, rising production costs and burdens from regulations. Protests across Europe show that the strain the farmers are under. Farmers are the custodians of our countryside, and food production is a public good. Sinn Féin is calling for a just transition fund, separate from existing budgets, to help farmers reduce emissions without risking their livelihoods. Environmental and economic sustainability must go hand in hand. Agriculture is the heart of rural life, and Sinn Féin will continue to fight for our farmers and rural communities to ensure that they have the resources and support to thrive. Go míle maith agaibh.
Padraig McLaughlin, Couga West and the Islands. Muireann Kavanagh is a young teenager from Ironmoe Island off the coast of Donegal. She is the latest generation of her family seeking to earn a living from the seas around her. Muireann wants to fish for pollock with a hook and line, the most sustainable and low-impact form of fishing at sea that there is. She's been told by our government that she cannot do so. While Muireann has been told to stop fishing, the largest super trawlers and super factory ships in the world hoover up the fish from the Irish territorial waters all around our coast. Under the Common Fisheries Policy, it is perfectly legal for a huge corporation to purchase fishing quota from member states all across the European Union and to fish with monster vessels that are 450 foot long. But it is illegal for an Irish teenager to fish from a small boat with a hook and line. Delegates, this cannot stand. I'm asking you to support Motion 24 and to renew my mandate as the Sinn Féin spokesperson on fisheries and the marine to lead the fight, along with our fishing and coastal communities, for fairness and justice. For too long, Irish governments have neglected those communities. The state is one of only 2 in the European Union surrounded by water, yet incredibly, we don't even have a junior minister for the marine and for fisheries. Is it any wonder that there's so much neglect and indifference? We are surrounded, delegates, by some of the richest fishing waters in the world. Our people deserve our fair share of that wealth. So let's keep the fight to get it. Let's get behind our fishing communities. Let's stand up for our interests. Let's go to Europe and fight for them. Thank you.
Is Misha Onyani Warhu, Sinn Féin, Sean South Common, Lisnaski and MLA for Fermanagh and South Tyrone. Aharja, rural communities are the backbone of our society, playing a crucial role in supporting agricultural production, preserving cultural traditions and safeguarding our natural landscapes. They make significant contributions to the economy, food security and environmental sustainability, while fostering strong social bonds and a sense of identity. Ensuring the vitality of these communities promotes balanced regional development and benefits everyone. We are currently facing a period of reduced public spending, exacerbated by uncertainty around replacement EU funding beyond 2025. During the Brexit referendum, we were assured that the North of Ireland would not be financially disadvantaged, promised pound-for-pound funding. However, Brexit has led to a significant reduction in financial supports. The British Government pledged to replace these funds through their Shared Prosperity Fund. However, as our Finance Minister, Dr Keith Archibald, has pointed out, the SPF falls well short of the previous EU funding levels, and it remains unclear if this funding will continue beyond March 2025. Rural communities have long benefited from a secure multi-annual EU funding package that emphasised local decision-making from the bottom up. In contrast, the Shared Prosperity Fund is neither rural-proofed nor equality-proofed and is managed by the British Government without the involvement of locally elected ministers or MLAs. The success of rural communities is closely tied to the prosperity of farm businesses. In my constituency of Fermanagh and South Tyrone, the largest recipient of farm subsidies, agriculture lies at the heart of our rural life. Our farmers, expected to compete in a subsidised global market, rely on these payments to sustain their livelihoods. Regarding the Peace Plus programme, while the rural sector appreciates its inclusion, and very much so, it is clear the Peace Plus is not a replacement for the Rural Development Programme. Aharja, in conclusion, supporting our rural communities is essential for ensuring their continued contribution to our economy, culture and environment. As we face uncertain times with reduced public spending and unclear future funding, it is vital that we prioritise fair and sustainable support for these areas. By doing so, we can ensure the prosperity of both rural businesses and agricultural businesses that are so deeply intertwined with their success. Please support Motion 16. Gurmila Mayagat.
Councillor Dermot Brown, Tom Flatley Common in Enniskillen, speaking in favour of Motion 22. Acharja, as a councillor representing a rural constituency, I see every day the impact that our underdeveloped public transport network is having on our rural communities. The reality is that many people in our society rely on public transport to get about. Owning a car or paying for taxis is a luxury that some people simply cannot afford. Public transport is used by people to attend medical appointments, to travel to work and to visit friends and family. Unfortunately, in places like rural Fermanagh, where I come from, our severe lack of public transport has made it impossible for rural dwellers to access the services and amenities they rely on every day. In my constituency, it wouldn't be unusual for areas to see at most 1 or 2 buses in a day, and it would be rare to see a bus past 6 p.m. Try and imagine what that's like for an elderly or disabled person who has an appointment at the nearest health centre 20 miles away, or a young person trying to get home from school in the evening, when they don't drive and when they're relying on our extremely poor public transport system. It's nearly impossible. The lack of public transport in our rural towns and villages signifies a real inequality endured by the people who live in those communities. The lack of access to public transport is symptomatic of other inequalities faced by rural communities, as we have also seen issues of accessing healthcare, education and economic opportunities. But investing in public transport is a prerequisite if we want to improve access to any of the rest. We often talk about the need to create a more regionally balanced economy, with economic prosperity shared more evenly among the regions and not just concentrated in Belfast and Dublin. But then we hear in the same breath that investing in public services in rural communities doesn't deliver value for money, and quite frankly, I find that quite insulting. We need to be coming out very strong and saying that investing in public services used by the people in our communities is the best value for money you can get. I am a great believer that once you provide the community with basic services to meet its needs, then you unlock the potential in those communities to thrive and grow in the future. I look forward to the day when we will see an accessible and affordable public transport system for all our people. Acardja, I would urge you to please support motion 22. Garmagat.
Francie Malloy, Sinn Féin, Common, Coleilen, Clonau. I'm speaking in support of motion 19. And this may seem repetitive to most because I've been talking about it since 1985. But it is very important that Lough Neagh is brought into public ownership, not just on the lines of preserving Lough Neagh, but on the lines of developing Lough Neagh, in the lines of actually bringing it into public ownership under a department who has responsibility for it. At the present time, you have a broad community support and broad community ownership with no power, and nobody has any power to implement the change. We need Lough Neagh to be brought into public ownership. In 2012, I brought a motion to the Assembly which achieved support from across the parties, but that opportunity was missed and it didn't proceed beyond that. So now we need to actually reactivate. It's good to see the motion here which talks about the strategy for Lough Neagh, but the strategy for Lough Neagh needs to be implemented, and the public ownership of it is the important thing, because you can do nothing if you don't own it. And ownership brings in the Waterways Ireland, it brings in other departments to actually play a part within it. But unless you get that, then you can do nothing with it. You can't put down a post into the water, into the bed of the lough, without the permission of an English Earl Shaftesbury. And so it is time to bring the ownership and the bed of Lough Neagh into Irish ownership, to be accountable to the Irish people and to be accountable to a department within the Assembly. Gormagat.
Kieran Burke, Peter Clancy, Mairead Farrell, Cummins, Ennis, speaking in motion 25. We've seen in recent years the effect disrupted supply chains have had on the supply of essential items. The likelihood of future disruption is only increasing. The medical world tells us that it is a matter of if, not when, the world will face another pandemic. The likelihood of disruption has increased with the evidence that climate has changed and is going to change more in the coming years. This is to be the challenge of our generation and generations yet to come, and we need to start putting contingencies in place. It's with this in mind that we're calling for the creation of a Department of Food Security. This department will have a number of focus areas. Number one, the creation of a body where small, medium-sized farmers would work directly for the state, receiving a guaranteed basic income, healthcare and state pensions. In return, these farmers would be supported in the production of high-quality food for the domestic market through low-intensity farming methods. Food produced could be subsidised in order to make it affordable to all. And two, the development of co-ops in local areas, providing local employment in local markets, selling locally produced food. These markets could have facilities to teach people about the food, how to cook it. These co-ops can become community gardens, allotments, where people can learn about food and possibly produce their own. They can be home to repair centres, tool hire facilities, educational centres, places for political discussion, community cafes, public transport hubs, and so on. The possibilities from this new department are many and can be the choice of the local community, increasing engagement in their communities. These hubs would contribute to reduction in carbon footprint and our biodiversity targets. with improved nutrition, better health for our people, reduction in the strain on our health system, sustainable livelihoods for approximately 120,000 farmers, and so on. Ultimately, it gives us the opportunity to steer our own future, doing what is best for us and doing it ourselves. Please vote in favour of motion 25. Thank you.
Councillor John Feely, Joe McManus Common Garrison, speaking in support of motion 22. I want to particularly focus on the all-island rail strategy. It did not serve the people of the North West well at all, and we as a party at every level must do everything to ensure that by the time it is reviewed, or if not sooner, more rail will be in the North West. The Donegal had lip service paid to it by extending the line from Derry to Letterkenny. Letterkenny railway should go the whole way to Sligo, connecting the North West. And Fermanagh, when the rail strategy is finished, will be the only county of the 32 counties without 1 inch of rail. As it stands, we neither have 1 inch of motorway nor dual carriageway either. So as a party, we have to work to ensure that by the time the review of the all-island rail strategy comes, we will be getting rail. Thank you.
Councillor Pat Traynor, Tony Ahern, Common Clonus, agus Thomas Shaw, Con Takiak the Horse, Dun Rune Brescia, Everhain, Atá Curha Leis an Clár. So I'm here supporting the supplementary motion number 1 on the Clár in relation to the North-South interconnector. And as a councillor, or one of 8 councillors on Monaghan County Council, we continue to support the local community who are opposed to the pylons being built across our county. We are in favour, absolutely, of the interconnector being undergrounded. We don't accept Airgrid's argument that this is not possible. It certainly is possible, and in line with this motion, we condemn their failure to do a proper socio-technical assessment. When an MEP, Matt Carthy, brought us to Europe, to Brussels, to see an similar interconnector between Belgium and Germany, which was certainly possible. The insistence of Airgrid and the government to continue on this line is leading to another Rossport-type conflict between the local community and the state forces, and something that could be avoided. In response to a question that I put to senior officials of Airgrid, they said if government changed the policy, they would have to follow. So I'm agreeing that we are seeking your support for motion 1 of the supplementary. Where am I at?
My name's Joe Fowler. I'm from the Anthony McGolla Breege, Maville Greencastle Common, and I'm speaking in favour of motion number 24. I'm an organic farmer. I've been organic farming or involved in it for over 30 years. I am passionate about the environment, but I deplore the fact that my community is divided. It's a fishing community and it's a farming community. And the farming people are receiving some benefit, even though life's not all a bed of roses for farmers. For the fishing community, they are being decimated. They're treated with disrespect. The village of Greencastle, which has a very lively working port, is just being destroyed. We need to protect and work hard in favour of our fishing community. Therefore, I'm asking you, please support motion 24. Thank you.
The Corja is Mr. David Flanagan, representing the Patrick Connery Common from Castlereagh, County Roscommon. I'm asking you for your support for motions 20 and 21, as I feel that they're very crucial to rural life and rural communities. So on motion 20, what we're proposing is that we ask the party to create a rural public transport plan for the entire island. I must acknowledge the work that our spokespeople have done in this area, and I also particularly credit the TDs who have been advocating for the Western Rail Corridor, which is an essential piece of infrastructure for the west of Ireland. But that what makes Sinn Féin unique is that we're an all-Ireland party and that we can link all these local campaigns into one holistic view or vision for what rural transport should look like. And that is why I believe that's the aim of this motion and that it should be supported. Regarding motion 21, I come from a rural farming background with 2 lovely donkeys, I'll add, and it's crucial to our rural economies that agriculture is supported, farmers are supported, fishing communities, all the aspects of agriculture is supported. But from my perspective, I can see that we're approaching a crossroads in terms of our climate action, and that I believe that in the future of the Family Farm Commission that Deputy Kenny mentioned, that we need to consider how we support agriculture in the just transition, in the transition to a low-carbon economy, and that we have the just transition as well. So that's why I'm asking you to support both motions 20 and 21. Gurmila Mahgrib.
Díomh Harja. My name is Sam Brooks and I am a delegate from the Tormey Mannion Common in South Roscommon. I'm here to speak in favour of public transport motions 20 and 22, as well as motions 16 and 23 on supporting rural communities and our agricultural workers. I have spoken time and time again about the vital need for public transport in rural Ireland. Dublin already has among the worst public transit systems in Europe, and yet, compared to rural areas, it's night and day. The people of rural Ireland cannot rely on current public transit systems. Where services even exist, they are constantly cancelled or late. I am sick and tired of constantly fighting without being heard. The government constantly talks about improved services, and yet I don't see any improvements, and neither do any of my neighbours. The majority of new rural services often barely run a few services a week, let alone being reliable enough to take to work, school, hospital appointments, or other vital reasons that people may need to take a bus or train. While any improvement in services are of course welcomed, it is hard to take it seriously when the few improvements we are seeing are only really being seen in our big cities, rather than in our smaller towns and villages. Why does the All-Ireland Strategic Rail Review, for example, not include properly extending services up to Sligo and Donegal? Why are our intercity bus services servicing smaller towns and villages constantly being cut or cancelled altogether? Why are we seeing public transport prices rising all the time while the government are constantly making a point about how cheap they are and how much they are cutting costs? The government does not take rural communities seriously, and we see this in public transport, but also in their lack of support for family farmers and rural communities. Farmers are the backbone of our economies, and the collapse of rural communities is directly being caused by a government that does not adequately support them. Rural businesses and our family farms collapsing threatens our culture and our collective well-being, and we need to prevent that. I know that I will continue to advocate for my community to receive more investment for public transport, and I know I will also be advocating for more investment for rural communities, businesses, community groups, and more investment into upholding our agricultural sectors. We need to see a massive improvement in this area, and I urge you to support these motions and to continue to fight on our behalf, because we desperately need your support. Gurmila Mahogrif.
Speakers can stick strictly to time so we can get everybody in this section. I
feel like that was targeted at me. I'll
take
take it.
Not picking on you at all, I swear.
Owen Finn, Cumann Warid Farrell, in Gáileh, Tommy Glarcha, Rún Iver Fish Shay, Agus Rún Iver Finney. Sinn Féin. What does Sinn Féin mean? Let's think about that. Sinn Féin is this idea that we're able to rely on ourselves, not a narrow-minded protectionism. Republicans have always been internationalists. It's this idea that we value independence, that we value self-sufficiency. This motion, number 26, is about placing value in the local, in the duiche, taking pride in local produce, in traditions that have sustained communities for generations, in Irish food, in Irish pubs, in the things that give us life in our communities. In recognising that, we have an opportunity to recognise that it's important for our culture. It's also important for our climate. If we're able to move away from the import consumption kind of industry that's out there and actually say, do you know what, the food that's made locally is good. We can reclaim some of that pride. And that's why I'm proposing having, and this motion and Galway are proposing having an audit of how we can move in that direction. What can we value better? And we've already heard about situations from Greencastle and Pádraig McLaughlin and Chris McManus have advocated very strongly on the issue of hook and line fishing. Just as super trawlers are hoovering up not just fish, but whole communities, the livelihoods of communities. We need to ban super trawlers, but we also need to recognise the cultural value of small-scale, sustainable traditions, whether it's in farming or in fishing. We need to exploit the opportunities that are there in EU and trade law to do with the exception culturelle, the idea that things that are of value should be protected from the vagaries of the market, and that is Sinn Féin. But that is also why we need to pass Motion 29. Because cruelty is not culture. Rural Ireland is built off the backs of people who give their lives to caring for animals. And Sinn Féin should stand in that tradition. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, we know that they're capable of cruelty. They show that in their treatment of our children day to day. We know that the Greens will pontificate with scant regard for the impact and the survival of rural communities. And they've never achieved the ambition in Motion 29. The idea of having an ombudsman to look after animal welfare, to have a junior minister to develop policy to end puppy farms, to improve standards at abattoirs. And I won't hide that my inner Shinner would like this to someday lead to an end to blood sports, an end to the landed gentry arriving in their red coats, attacking, tormenting and hunting native Irish animals. Yes, I'd like that. But right now, 2 centuries after Humanity Dick, a Galway man, founded the first society for the prevention of cruelty to animals, I'm saying let's make cruelty history. Let's make rural decline history. Let's make history. Let's do what Sinn Féin's meant to be about. Thank you very much.
Adrian O'Gallagher, Rath Melton Common, speaking in favour of Motion 23. The family farm is the most important plank of rural development and providing good quality food to the people. Sinn Féin has proven to be on the side of small family farmers and have the policies to support their prosperity. However, supporting models of farming that will coexist with the family farming model should also be adopted by a future progressive Republican government. Food sovereignty is vital to national sovereignty. The people must create produce and feed themselves. Today in Ireland we have emigration away from rural areas due to lack of jobs and services. We have big monopolies controlling many of our food sources, such as killings and fruit. Many of these monopolies rely on practices that degrade the environment or rely on chemicals for production. Wages are often low in corporate food production. Despite the hard work by agricultural workers, the profits are then generated for the ruling class. In order to challenge the monopolies and to create sustainable food practices, we need to create a system that is rooted in the ownership by the people. The development of cooperatives or community-run industries in food production will challenge the vested interests and allow the people to have sovereignty over that production. It will create jobs and opportunities in rural Ireland that will allow communities to prosper through such development. Training and resources for those who will work in these farms will be an important aspect in order to learn environmentally sustainable practices that will deliver the good quality food for the people. The bottom line, comrades, is that food production will only be sovereign if it's rooted with the people in the form of family, cooperative and community farms. Gormaigad.
Is Darren O'Rourke, Sinn Féin TD for Meath East. Thomas Ashe Cumming speaking in support of motions 17 and 18 from the Ard Fheis in relation to climate action and Sinn Féin's response to climate change, and in support of supplementary motion number 1 on the North-South Interconnector, and Pat Traynor has articulated that well. Sinn Féin launched our alternative budget yesterday. Immediately there were 7 statements from Fine Gael in response to it. One of them, from a little-known Fine Gael senator, said that Sinn Féin was going to tax luxury cars and private jets, and he meant it as an insult. And I think it's a compliment. And it highlights the difference between this government and Sinn Féin. This government is all about punitive measures, and actually all of their schemes will amount to a massive transfer of wealth. Protecting those people. Won't somebody think of the luxury car owners and the private jet owners? Well, Fine Gael surely will. You look at the schemes in terms of electric cars, home retrofits, access to public transport. It is benefiting the few at the cost of the many. Everybody paying into carbon tax, and only a small number of people benefiting from it. The Sinn Féin approach is entirely different. It has justice, fairness, equality at its very heart. For us, as a Republican Party, renewables are the cornerstone of the energy transition, of our response to climate change. We have the opportunity to deliver Irish unity, to deliver energy security and independence built on wind and solar, hydrogen. It will involve the investment in our ports, in our grid, investment in grid in the right way, investment in infrastructure, and most importantly, led by the state and led by communities. So community-owned, community-led, state-owned, state-led. That's the difference between us and this government. We can do it. It's the foundation of the energy transition, of our response to climate change, and only a Sinn Féin-led government will deliver. Go Míle Maith Agaibh.
Rory Ryan, Sinn Féin, Cumming, Kelly Hall, Port Arlington. I'm here this evening to ask for your support for motion 28 to call for the immediate publication of the Marine Protected Areas Bill and the provision of adequate funding and training to enforce this bill, as well as grants supports to help citizens and businesses affected by it. The government has sat on its hands with this bill for over 2 years, and we were falling behind Europe in designating protected areas of our waters. Indeed, Ireland ranked 77th in the world for percentage of protected marine areas, a disgrace given that we are an island with a substantial continental shelf extending into the Atlantic Ocean. As things stand now, there is nothing stopping overfishing and destruction of a marine environment by massive national and international commercial vessels. Bottom trawling practices are raping the ocean floor and leaving nothing but destruction and debris in its wake. Protecting 1/3 of our waters from this practice alone would allow nature to prosper and allow for an increase in overall fish stock. By delaying the publication and enaction of this bill, while other countries forge ahead with maritime protection, the government has given green light to worldwide fishing fleets to come to Ireland and pillage our resources and destroy our seas. I see a future where descendants of Irish fishermen have access to abundant fishing grounds, are safeguarding our protected waters, have employment opportunities in tourism, education, research, recreation, all because we have put an end to destruction of at least 30% of our waters. But if we fail to act and the oceans die, we die. Areas of seagrass can absorb up to 35 times the carbon than the equivalent area of rainforest sequests. Protecting 30% of our waters might give us some chance of survival. Supporting this motion is a step towards protecting our sovereign waters, protecting coastal communities, providing maritime-related employment, and ensuring our waters remain alive for our children. Vote yes to motion 28. Gur Míle Maith Agaibh.
Nicola will be our last speaker on this section, and then we'll be taking the vote on motions 16 to 29.
Smisha Nicola Burgain, Billy Reid Cumming as Nomi. I'm speaking in support of motions Shachjig, Ahokjig, August and Nijig. Despite the repeated warnings of the international scientific community, the climate crisis continues unabated. I've no doubt that the efforts to reach net zero will be fraught with challenges, but we must bear in mind that they will also be filled with potential. In embracing a just transition, particularly towards renewable energy, we can not only reduce our emissions, we can develop a thriving green economy, we can take power, quite literally, out of the hands of price-gouging multinationals, we can make energy independence a real, achievable goal, we can tackle poverty by bringing down energy costs, and we can become a world leader in the development of renewable technology. It is also worth remembering that as much as we have to gain from a just transition, we have even more to lose by doing nothing. Climate change is an existential crisis. We're looking at the mass migration of people across the world, major impacts on global food production, and the spread of new and existing pests and pathogens. In fact, we're already seeing the effects of climate change here. Temperature increases are one of the contributing factors leading to the increase of blue-green algae throughout the waterways and in particular in Lough Neagh. Last year, this Ard Fheis gave its full support to the restoration and protection of Lough Neagh. In that time, Sinn Féin has been active on the ground with local communities and in the relevant statutory committees to demand action on the loch. Despite continued British Government austerity, Finance Minister Keith Archibald has managed to set funding aside specifically for the recovery of the loch, and we welcome the action plan that's been set out by DAERA. However, there's much more that needs to be done. Fishermen require an emergency rescue package to ensure that their industry can be sustained. And as Francie outlined earlier, the vicinity of a lake half the size of a county that provides a vital public function being under private ownership continues. And we need to see much more integration north and south when it comes to addressing both blue-green algae and general water quality issues. The need has never been greater for the development of all Ireland environmental and biodiversity bodies. Aharja, we must act now to protect and preserve our environment, our country and our planet for all future generations. I urge you to support these motions. Okay,
I'm going to move to take the votes on motions 16 to 29. We're going to take the vote on the supplementary motion 1 first. That's on your green sheets. So, Evaver, Inai, Tasha Galacna. Okay, we'll move to the substantive motions then. Motion Evershe Jeg, Evaver.
And we're back to voting. Tá votal siúl inis arún Maidir le cuasaí talmhaíochta tuaithe agus mara. They're having the vote now on all those motions you just heard people speaking passionately about on rural development, agriculture and the marine. Motions in there as well about the climate. But I am joined here by one of our new councillors from the local elections only a few months ago, Councillor Louis O'Hara from the best county in Ireland. Another Galway man. We need more Galway people around here. That's my own view. But how are you, Louis? How is being a councillor?
It's good. It's been, I suppose, a bit of a learning experience. It's been a bit of a learning experience going into the council. A lot to get your head around at the beginning, but I feel like I have a good grasp on things now and feel like I'm, in a good position to, be able to start delivering for my community. That's the number one focus, when you are a councillor.
That's fantastic. No, and it's great to see young people getting involved in politics, but also getting elected, because the amount of work that goes into the campaign and everything. How did you feel on election day when? Did you know the whole way through the day? Okay, I've got it in the bag, or were you unsure until the very moment the vote came in? How did you feel that day? If that's not a cruel question to ask.
It was an awful day because I didn't know right until probably the last half an hour maybe of the count that I was going to get in. So. Yeah, very, very stressful day, but we got over the line in the end, so that's the most important thing. And yeah, I think you're right, it's very important that we have young people in politics. I think it's one of the great things about this party is that we do put forward a lot of young people in election. I think it's great as well that the general public are willing to support young people and elect young people, because it's really important that we have a diverse range of people represented in our councils and in the Oireachtas too. So.
And have you found Galway County Council an easy place to get to grasp with the work straight away, or you mentioned it was a learning curve? you feel like you've been able to start representing people.
Agus is honor mór dú a bhíon seo bhar goideachta inniu. Le bheith dimple cairde agus comradaithe a ggurchar sean cairde agus a ggurchar éon na nua fásta til linne gnar de seo agus báilm foiilte go héirí thar ribh na báil úra tan seo in ar másc. Ní léon doubt gom gomúla sib le ceile de chudna gríomhairí Sinn Féin is chomanta agus go bhfuilma faoi tú ufa fásta. Díine a chreidir go léidir fa dú an airtha is féidir linne bhainte má. Agus in am dhéanaí tú héin a bart óthaíú an gluiseirte. Ní léon ról rábhag na ráhór sa strathil seo agus tá an daine de dhítharainn a má san námatá má róin. Tá oltéhan mar a tesagann big na linn. Agus nulasgan cén bhuair a hocaise an téan sin, má sé deireadh fómhar na an saoin na luas a bhí anúr. Ach tesagann go bhfuil se teart agus tesagann go dtí gaiime dinne dhéanú. Agus tá freagracht all-mhór árainn, freagracht árainn dochas a thuirt a ghaoine agus tiispantífa gur féidir an neartha óhainte má. So, Courage, it's a privilege to be here today, to be surrounded by friends and comrades, to see many familiar faces and also new faces. And I particularly want to welcome all of our new members who are here with us at this Ard Fheis. No doubt that you're going to meet and learn from some of the most dedicated party activists, people that are passionate about the change, and I'm sure that you and your community are making your own contribution. Because as Bobby Sands said, there is no part too great or too small. Courage, this is a great country. But something has gone terribly wrong when we have a government that is awash with surpluses in the billions but completely fails to deliver on the basic needs and services of a nation. Affordable homes, accidents and emergency where you're seen and safe, assessments of needs and therapies for children with additional needs. Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are incapable of delivering these basic things, even when they have the resources. And that's the choice that people will face in the next election. Sinn Féin or Fine Gael. It is your choice. Who do you want to lead the next government? Do you want change or do you want more of the same? Do you want a party with a housing plan that brings home ownership back within the reach of ordinary people? Or do you want another generation struck in their children's bedroom or on a flight to Australia? Do you want fairness for communities or sweetheart deals for vulture funds or the friends of government? Or do you want millions of money, of your money, paid in taxes washed away in bike sheds and massive security huts and tax breaks for the wealthiest on their gold-plated pension, and on overspends of well over €1 billion on the most expensive hospital in the world? Or do you want what Sinn Féin offers, accountability, so that your money is spent on delivering the services and infrastructure that you and your community needs? Encourages Sinn Féin has a plan to make housing affordable for working people, and we're ready to start delivering that plan from day one in government. Because we know what it's like to struggle to secure housing, to be in that housing waiting list, to not have a home of your own. We know what it's like when you're waiting month and month. We know what it also means and how your life can change when you secure that home. And I know this all too well, because it was my life-changing experience for my parents, my brothers, my sisters, when we got our first home. It gave us security, it gave us opportunity, community, a home of your own. And a home is not just a roof over your head. So Sinn Féin will move heaven and earth to make housing affordable, and we will deliver 300,000 homes over the next 5 years. I encourage you. We have shown in the plan produced by Ona Bryn that not only do we have the plan, but we have the determination, and we will hit the ground running if given a chance. So let me be clear, Sinn Féin and government will end this housing crisis for once and for all. I encourage you. We will stand up for renters and end the rip-off rents. The days of runaway rents has to end. That's the Fine Gael way. That's the Fianna Fáil way. In Sinn Féin, we will put 1 month's rent back into renters' pockets, and we will ban rent increase for the 3 years, because renters deserve a government that is on their side, and that is exactly which side Sinn Féin will choose. I encourage you, thousands of families in my own county and elsewhere are seeing their homes crumbling before their very eyes. These are the casualties of the Fianna Fáil era of light-touch regulation. A Sinn Féin government will end their nightmare. We will deliver 100% redress to families who have to rebuild their homes due to defective blocks. And we will tackle the scourge of dereliction in our cities and our towns. Because that is the scale of our ambition and that is what our state needs. Our state needs Sinn Féin's plan and Ona Brin as Minister to deliver it. I encourage you. Delivering affordability and housing is only one way that we're going to support you and your family. Sinn Féin promises to support families every step of the way. And key to supporting families is affordable childcare. Sinn Féin will give all parents access to childcare at €10 a day per child. Our €10 a day childcare guarantee will be delivered next year. And this will be a game changer for families the length and breadth of this state. And we will roll it out to all childminders in the forthcoming years also. And I want to make it clear to families, Sinn Féin will make Ireland a better place to start a family, to raise a family and to build a future. We also know that the cost of living crisis is far from over. And if I am Minister for Finance, I will unashamedly stand up for workers and families. Sinn Féin and government will abolish the USC for the average worker. No worker will pay the USC on the first €45,000 they earn, and the average worker will never have to pay the USC again under a Sinn Féin-led government. I encourage you, this is a measure that will benefit all workers, and it is a measure that we will begin to deliver in year one. Fine Gael TDs are upset. They're upset that Sinn Féin want to tax private jets, that we would ask the wealthiest in society to pay a bit more. But see, that is who Fine Gael are, and that is what they stand for. That's why they've always sided over and over again for the vulture funds, why they always take the sides of the landlords over the renters, why they have given tax breaks to the wealthiest, and why they have failed to invest in your communities. If I am Finance Minister, I will provide a €1 billion commitment of investing into communities and working class communities that were left behind by those parties of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. I will invest in the All-Ireland economy and prepare for Irish unity, and I will never, ever stand over the shameful waste we have seen from this government over and over and over again. Because Fine Gael, I urge you, Fine Gael will preach prudence, but when it comes to bike sheds or security huts, or don't get me started on the National Children's Hospital, the cheques keep on being written and rolled out, wasting taxpayers' money over and over again. And people are demanding accountability. And Sinn Féin, I urge you, is the alternative. We will bring the days of government for the cosy club to an end. So together we can build a better future. And I know for many it's been a tough year, particularly for our activists on the ground. And we've listened to our voters and we've listened to our members. But Sinn Féin now is moving forward with determination, with our positive message of hope and change, whether it's our housing policy or our drive for a united Ireland or our unwavering support for Palestine. In the next few weeks, I encourage you, in the next few weeks or months, we will have a massive, massive opportunity. The opportunity to put Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil out of government. So I encourage you, there was always going to be pushback. There are powerful forces out there that want the status quo to remain. This was never going to be easy. But take heart that in the challenging times, the closer we get, the harder it gets. So the harder it gets, the closer we are. And this is when we are at our best, when our backs are to the wall. So I'm looking forward to the election campaign because I know that those that want the status quo are underestimating the power of our movement. Sinn Féin are the real alternative. We offer a positive vision for the future. So I encourage you, let's go out, each and every one, and let's win that future together. Gurmaiga.
Akarja, We're now opening the section on rights, justice and equality. Can I ask speakers to please form a queue? Tá an diaspóracht oscailse. And Akarja, while the speakers are getting ready, can I remind you that there is a social event this evening in the Dark Horse. It's happening after the Ardèche. The tickets are €10 and there's information in your pack in relation to where it is. This section on rights, justice and equality is now open. Gurmila Mahagov.
Pa Daly, Common, John Joshi, here Drawley. People have a right to feel safe and secure in their own communities and in our capital city. Control has been lost on a number of occasions and there has been unacceptable breaches of public order, most especially the incidents in Dublin over the past year. The deterrence and the solution to the problem is a visible and active Garda presence in order to deter crime. On Garda Síochána, maintaining a large visible presence at large public order events is the answer. Events such as the Ireland-England game and the Europa League final proves this, because it addressed not only the crime but also the fear of crime. And a properly resourced and ready public order unit is also necessary. That presence and reassurance is what we need to see every single day. A police service that is supported and strengthened and resourced to make Gardaí feel that we have their back and to reassure our communities. But what do we see from government? They try to deny that there even is a problem, crossing their fingers in the hope that the problem of reducing Garda numbers will simply go away. We have a Justice Minister who maintains that reaction times in Coolock were fast enough and who continues to claim that Gardaí are adequately resourced. A Justice Minister who believes that Dublin is safe for the most part. Well, I'm afraid we need more than that. We have this government who have had 3 separate Ministers for Justice and a party in Fine Gael who has held this post for 13 years. All the meantime, numbers of Gardaí have been decimated and rural towns and villages see more drug-related intimidation and violent robberies. We are in the midst of a recruitment and retention crisis in Garda Síochána, and it will only worsen as the number of those eligible to retire over the next few years increases from 722 this year to 1,000 next year, 1,200 the year after that, and 1,904 in 2028. While morale in the Gardaí plummets, this is not achievable, because that is twice what the government intends to recruit per year. And the reality is the government missed its targets last year with only 746 commencing. And the Minister herself admitting that only between 600 and 700 will attest this year. Minister, do the maths and plan ahead for the next few years. There is a massive per capita decrease in the number of Gardaí compared to when Fine Gael first took office. At the end of 2011, there was just under 14,000 members, and in March of this year, just over 14,000, all whilst the population of the state increased by roughly 20%. So for every 5 Gardaí we have, we are missing 1, and that has had a devastating effect. A devastating effect in stations like Clondalkin and Tala and all around the country where the numbers have been reduced and Gardaí are stressed and leaving. Our prisons too are overcrowded and rapidly becoming universities of crime. We will invest, and we have a bill in relation to restorative justice, and we will pass legislation mandating its usage where it is suitable and allocate more funds towards rehabilitation in the prisons. So radical change is needed. The government has no plan, have no ideas, are not investing in the Garda Reserve, have not explored the need for a second Garda training college, and are allowing many to remain in non-core duties when they should be investing more of Gardaí who can stay on in the job and stay there. This country deserves better. It has been left down time after time by this government. We also need an independent public inquiry, statutory inquiry into the death of Shane O'Farrell, into the death of Terence Wheelock, and an acknowledgement of the truth in the Kerry Babies case, where it has never adequately been explained how 6 different people in one family in 6 different rooms all gave dovetailing statements which could not possibly have been true. That has never been acknowledged. We need to look We need to invest in communities, have a restorative justice plan, consider the new training college for Gardaí close to Dublin, because we can see that repeating the same mistakes is not going to deliver the change and the reassurance for ordinary people in this state. We need a clean sweep of Fine Gael from justice, and we need this government to be brushed aside. Gora míle mágat.
Deirdre Hargay, Nolan Downey Common. I stand before you today as the proud MLA for the diverse and vibrant constituency of South Belfast. The principles of human rights, equality and social justice are the guiding lights that lead us as Irish Republicans. The basic beliefs of treating each other with equality, protecting the most vulnerable and having respect for one another are the cornerstone of our politics. In the summer this year in Belfast and sporadically across the north, we witnessed a small minority involved in racist intimidation and attacks. Thugs attacked people who have made this island their home. They set alight their businesses, they damaged their homes, destroyed their cars and left people's lives in ruin. And let me be absolutely clear, there is no room for racist attacks, Islamophobia, intimidation, sectarianism or discrimination anywhere in our society. Racism is wrong in all its forms and must be opposed and eradicated. Our ethnic minorities enrich our communities. They are the bedrock of much of our health and social services. Across the summer months, my community of the Lower Armour Road stood tall against the racists. We stopped them from entering our community, forming a physical barrier to prevent them from progressing further onto our streets. And indeed, that community stood in the face of racism, but also sectarianism. We stood with our neighbours at the Belfast Islamic Centre and also in solidarity and marches that took place in the following weeks. I also met with business owners who had their premises damaged and pledged our party's support. And in Belfast City Council, Sinn Féin initiated a special meeting of the Council to condemn the racism and the riots and to implement supports for the businesses and the families that were affected. Belfast is the home of emancipation, of civil rights and of community organising. It's a place I'm proud to call my home and a place that is proudly diverse. The police have made a number of arrests and are continuing their investigations. And the response of the majority of our city was to stand with our ethnic minority communities. In our thousands, we turned out to say no to racism, no to sectarianism, no to attacks and intimidation. And we said yes to diversity, yes to inclusion, and yes to equality for all. So I speak today in support of Motion 31 from the Ard Fheis. Together we must stand with our neighbours who share this island. Together we will face down the scourge of racism and sectarianism in our society. And together we will build a new Ireland for all. Gora míle mágat.
Delegates, we have a long queue of speakers, which is brilliant, and with your cooperation we'll get to everybody. Can I ask delegates please give your name and your coming, and also keep it as brief as you can. Gora míle mágat.
Chief, Smusha Dermot O'Hara, all councillor coming Derry. I'm here to propose motion 37. Shortly after the signing of the Good Friday Agreement, Gerry Adams met with Republican activists in Derry, and a key message I took away from this meeting was the need to create an Ireland of equals. I have to tell you that following a lot of pondering and discussion about how to do this, I realised that there was a community within our community that was invisible. People with learning disabilities, people with autism and other conditions. So along with several others, we established an organisation called Destined to give support to this hidden section of the population. Destined is a support charity for people with learning disabilities in both the city and Feeney in the county. It offers services to over 250 people to reduce their levels of isolation and exclusion from society, and supports the community to become proactive in the process of inclusion and integration. The organisation has an ethos of empowerment for its members through skills acquisition and works on the basis that people with learning disabilities have the same rights and opportunities as everyone else in society, with the only difference being that they may need a bit of extra support to become involved in normal everyday activities. The group operates 7 days a week, morning, afternoon, evenings, delivering programmes through the themes of employment, training and education, personal development, independent living, social and recreational activities. In line with this ethos of empowerment, the majority on the board of directors have a learning disability, and those without support the chair and the treasurer. They're my bosses, and sometimes let me know it. All of its project committees include destined members, and they are central to all the decision-making processes. And by the way, our people are members, not clients. Around 2004, we held the first consultation in Derry with over 60 people attending that sought to identify generic needs and develop a strategy to address those needs. The questions posed at the consultation were very simple. We asked people, where are you at in your lives currently? Where do you want to be in the future? And what does Destin have to do to make it happen? And every 3 or 4 years, we have gone back and did the consultations using the same format, and the results are consistent. Most people wanted 3 things in their lives: a decent job, a home of their own, and a long-term relationship. This sounds familiar. They want the same thing as everyone else. They just need a little bit more help to achieve it. Traditional daycare services provided by health trusts run from Monday to Friday, 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock. We use a person-centred planning process to identify individual needs and develop an action plan to achieve these needs. So our people and their needs are at the centre of everything we do, and that's not Monday to Friday. I was at a consultation in Lakeview Hospital, the local learning disability hospital, and we were talking about future services, and it was the Western Trust had set it up. And Michael, one of our directors, he was sitting beside me, and he leaned over and he whispered to me, and he says, the last time I was on here, I was a patient in the wards down the stairs. I haven't been there since I joined Destin, and now I'm up here working out future policy. There is an economic value to the citizenship model that we use in Destin. 20 years ago, we undertook a social return on investment calculation that stated for every £1 invested in our organisation, we created £4.17 value. Last year, the Housing Executive calculated that ratio as over £10. We want, and we have the ability, we have the resources, we have the expertise. We want services for people with learning disabilities right across the north to be delivered by the community and not for profit, so that they ensure that people with learning disabilities are no longer invisible and that we create an Ireland of equals. Thank you.
Once again, delegates, can I ask you to stick to the time, to be fair to your comrades, and make sure everybody gets a chance to speak this evening. And can I also, because I'm going to get sacked out of this job as chair if I don't, remind you that we are taking supplementary motions 2 and 3. Those are on your green sheets.
Hello, Miriam Kiblahan, Cumann MacDiarmid the Gilgun in Manorhamilton, County Leitrim. Accordia, I'm speaking in support of motion 44 in front of you this evening. And motion 44 calls for the intentional design and development of our public spaces to ensure that they are accessible and welcoming to people of all age groups. We must recognise that our public spaces, whether they are parks, squares or pedestrian areas, are not just physical locations, they are social environments. When designed thoughtfully, they foster connection, promote social cohesion and reflect the values of equality and inclusion. The motion advocates for intergenerational public spaces where children can play safely, where teenagers can meet and congregate, where women and girls can move freely, and where older people can participate in their communities unencumbered. Public spaces should be places of shared experiences, and equal access to public spaces should not be a privilege for the few, but a fundamental right for all. Unfortunately, we know that many of our public spaces are failing to meet these ideals. In recent years, there has been a marked decline in safety in our urban areas, with an increase in incidents that disproportionately affect women and girls, particularly after dark. Public spaces should be places where everyone can move freely without fear, yet for many women, the reality is very different. Sustainable Development Goal 5 seeks to achieve gender equality and empower women and girls. To achieve this, we need to prioritise the safety of women and ensure that public spaces are designed with this in mind, from improved lighting to more open and visible pedestrian and cycling routes, particularly after dark. Ensuring the right of women and girls to move freely and safely in public is a matter of gender equity. Also, in recent months, we have seen an alarming rise in the colonisation of our public spaces by groups of men engaged in rioting and violence. These urban spaces, meant for communal and peaceful use, have become battlegrounds for those with malicious intent. This not only threatens public safety, but also erodes the sense of community that these spaces were intended to nurture. Well-designed intergenerational spaces become self-moderating, reducing the need for policing, for carceral and surveillance intervention measures. Sustainable Development Goal 11 calls for inclusive, safe, resilient and sustainable urban environments. We cannot achieve this if part of our cities are dominated by those who seek to intimidate, riot or commit violence. Public spaces must belong to everyone, not to factions that use them to spread fear or criminality. The proposition before you recognises that by making public spaces more intergenerational and diverse in their nature, we can reclaim them from such harmful influences. When a wide range of people use and occupy public spaces, families, young people, older generations, these places become inherently safer and less prone to domination by criminal elements. Diversity in use fosters accountability and creates environments where people feel a shared responsibility for safety and respect. Spaces that encourage a mix of generation and activities are essential for building social connections, reducing isolation and fostering a sense of belonging. A well-designed public space has the power to transform lives, connect communities and build a more inclusive society, but it must be done intentionally, with safety, accessibility and inclusivity at its heart. I call on you to please support the motion. Gurmila Mahagwid.
Carja, I don't want to be banging the mic all evening, so can you make a real effort to stick to your time, if nothing else, out of respect for your comrades who are waiting to speak. Thanks.
Díomh Carja, Councillor Aoife Rose O'Brien from the Martin Meehan Cumming in County Wexford, speaking on behalf of motions 41 and 42. We are witnessing an epidemic of sexual, domestic and gender-based violence in Ireland today, yet less than 2% of criminal cases of this nature end in a conviction. That means that almost 98% of reported perpetrators walk free from court. There were nearly 54,000 domestic abuse incidents attended to by An Garda Síochána during 2022. In 2023, one national service heard over 40,000 disclosures of abuse, 35,570 disclosures of abuse against women, and almost 5,000 disclosures of abuse against children. Post-separation abuse is reaching critical heights in today's society. We must ensure that we support and protect all victims to the best of our abilities. I ask that this level of support includes policy prioritising housing transfers for housing tenants who have been subject to sexual, domestic or gender-based violence, specifically where the victims are living within a close proximity of their abusers. Accordia, let us help provide more safeguards and let us all be part of the radical change that can tackle this epidemic. Let us all be a voice for the victims whose voices have been taken. Let us show that our Ireland can be safe for all. Justice is not served for the majority of victims in Ireland, and this has to stop. We must provide a solid deterrent for any person who feels that they have the right to abuse another, and ensure that if they do, that they are reprimanded appropriately for their horrific actions. They must know that we will not accept this any longer. Gurv Mian Mahagat.
G.E. Accordia. My name is Rourke Keown. I'm from the Hearst McManus Common in Longford Town, and I'm speaking in favour of motion 31, 39, 40 and 46. Last year, I stood in this spot and briefly spoke on the importance of how we, as left-wing socialist Republicans, have a duty to stand against all forms of discrimination in our communities, and how Ireland, like many other European countries, has not escaped the rise of far-right politics and outright fascism in recent times, and the last 10 months have been no different. The rise of far-right activity in Ireland has been alarming, to say the least, and has been exacerbated by large-scale and purposeful misinformation. Misinformation which was designed to attract people from working-class communities, people who have concerns about the poor governance from the establishment parties. However, it is not the establishment parties who feel the pressure from the mobilisation of the far right. It is us as left-wing activists, it is us as people who genuinely contribute to our communities, and most importantly, it is the minorities who these people single out on a daily basis, singled out of nothing but hatred by these people. These people claim to care about their communities, but in turn burn it to the ground. These people claim to be the Irish, but forget our country's history of immigration. These people claim to be patriots, but stand with loyalists on the streets of our occupied counties. These people claim to help the homeless, but burn down and destroy tents of those living on the streets. These people claim to care about families, but terrorise women and children on a daily basis. These people claim to care about Irish culture, Ochni Laranshid or Chonga. These people claim to be Irish, but by the way they carry our tricolour, you'll be forgiven for thinking the Ivory Coast of a strong travelling fan base. They may sometimes carry our flag, but they do not represent us. The softly approach by An Garda Síochána in comparison to the treatment of Debenhams workers peacefully exercising their right to industrial action is astonishing. This soft approach has a direct link to the confidence of the far right, the confidence that has led them to physically assault minorities and left-wing activists, including myself. There should be no confidence from these people. They should know and expect that if they attempt to sow hate into our communities, that they will be stopped by grassroots, community, Republican and anti-fascist activists. These people and their ideologies have no place in our communities. They never have and never will. These people think that they are fighting a so-called war. The same people who are nowhere to be seen when there was war on our Ireland, and who will be nowhere to be seen tomorrow if there was one. It is up to us as left-wing Republican activists to stand up against and stop all attempts of fascism to rear its ugly head in our communities. No passaran, Gurvili Mahagat.
Good evening, Ardesh. It's Misha Barry Campion, Martin McGuinness coming Longford Hua. I want to speak to you today in favour of motion 53. A recent report published by An Garda Síochána showed that there has been a 12% increase in the number of reported hate crimes and hate-related incidents. Sexual orientation has remained one of the most commonly recorded forms of targeting over the past 3 years. The report finds that 45% of LGBTQI plus people in Ireland feel unsafe holding hands with a same-sex partner in public, and over half of trans and non-binary people feel unsafe expressing their gender identity in public. It pains me that coming up on 10 years after the marriage equality referendum, there are several areas up and down this country, be it in the capital or in any of the regional towns, villages, cities, that my husband or myself would not feel safe holding hands. The research further found that 1 in 4 members of Ireland's LGBTQI plus community have been punched, hit or physically attacked due to their gender or sexual orientation, and 72% experience verbal abuse due to being LGBTQI plus. For a country that has come in leaps and bounds in recent decades, these figures and statements are a stark reminder that much remains to be done. It's unfortunate that social media has contradicted its name itself and become antisocial, and is often a host of hate, antisocial behaviour and abuse. It has become a breeding ground for hatred, and this has been reflected in social behaviour and often serious assaults on the streets up and down the country. Imagination and community engagement is needed in areas where homophobic and transphobic abuse has become prevalent. There should not need to be specified safe spaces for anybody in any community, but the entire community should be safe for everybody. It's high time a true left-wing party was in power that had genuine compassion towards all its people, not an incompetent mix of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael that have been unashamedly been pinkwashing for years. Go raibh maith agat.
John Finucane, Castlecommon, North Belfast. Accordia, I'm here to support motion number 30. The Legacy Act was introduced by the Tory government, and it was introduced in a way that caused huge hurt and distress on many families, and this was done so in a very deliberate and cruel manner. It was introduced despite the swathe of opposition that opposed it, not just on this island but internationally. And crucially, it closed the door on truth and justice to all families, no matter the source of their loss or injury. And it did so whilst publicly and shamelessly protecting only those who fought Britain's dirty war in Ireland. The Legacy Act gave us a body called the ICRIR, a body that, when it was first revealed in 2023, was criticised by families. And in 2024, just last week, in the Court of Appeal in Belfast, once again provided vindication for families by striking down at its heart and asking serious questions about its ability to be impartial. The British Government must now listen to the court, it must now listen to the families, and it must grasp the opportunity that it has to be part of the solution in how we deal with our past, and not repeat the mistakes of previous British governments by attaching themselves and being part of the problem. We must see a swift and an immediate return to the principles of Stormont House. Accordia, I stand here this evening in full support of the calls by the Thompson, Brown and McCusker families for a full public inquiry. As someone who has fought for an inquiry for the vast majority of their lives, I know that that journey can be tough, and I know that that journey can be very lonely. But what I also know is that when I see the success of other families, in my case, whether it be Ballymurphy or Bloody Sunday or many others, it gives me hope and it gives me inspiration. And the announcement that we had recently, I think, was a vindication for all families. So this evening, let us do what we have always done. Let's send our solidarity. Let's speak with one voice. Let's be very loud, and let's make sure all those families and every family knows that we stand with them the way we always have. Garamila Mayogov.
Linda Dillon, Coleilan Clono Martyrs, Sinn Féin Commons, speaking to motion 30. This motion reaffirms our unwavering commitment to truth, to justice and rights of victims' families. When I spoke at this Ard Fheis last year, the family of Cúgeard Coney from Clono were awaiting an inquest after 50 years into his killing whilst escaping from Longcash prison. And in March this year, a jury found that Gerard had been shot in the back, unarmed, and was given no verbal warning. It took 50 years, but the Coney family got the truth, and every family deserves that as a minimum. The motion before us is not just a matter of political principle. It is a matter of human rights, a matter of dignity, and a matter of fundamental justice. And let me state without any ambiguity that Sinn Féin remains in total opposition to the British government's so-called Legacy Act. This legislation is an affront to justice, and its intent is clear: to cover up the truth of Britain's actions during the conflict in Ireland.
We call for its repeal and a genuine replacement, one that reflects the will of the people, the victims and families. Despite widespread opposition, despite successful legal challenges as were outlined by John before me, the Government presses ahead with the ICRIR. They refuse to listen to the voices calling for transparency and justice. What is needed now is simple. It's set out in this motion. It's a return to the agreed principles set out in the Stormont House Agreement. These mechanisms were painstakingly negotiated, endorsed by both governments and all the main political parties. And most importantly, they were supported by victims and families, evident in the 17,500 responses to the NIO consultation in 2018, ignored and threw out the window whenever they decided to go ahead with something of their choosing rather than what had been agreed. This agreement provides a framework for addressing the legacy of the past in a way that respects the needs of victims, their families and our communities. It was a balanced and measured approach, but instead the British Government has chosen a path that prioritises concealment over accountability. This motion stands for an alternative that honours those who lost their lives, their families and the future of our island, and gives us the best chance of genuine and meaningful reconciliation based in truth, justice and human rights. And tonight, as John outlined, we speak in solidarity with families who are still waiting on the truth, and particularly with the families of Sean Brown, Fergal McCusker, Liam Paul Thompson and the McKierney and Fox families. These families deserve nothing less than full public inquiries into the circumstances of their loved ones' deaths. What we get from the British Government is an attempt to shove these investigations into the ICRIR, a process that has been rejected by the majority of families. We reject this approach and we stand with these families who have already suffered so much at the hands of the British state. We support them in their calls for legacy inquests and we commend them for their tireless efforts. And tonight we offer our solidarity again to the family of the Finucane family and to Geraldine and all of her family in their fight and where they have brought us to. And we thank them for showing hope to all of the other families out there. Gurmila Mayoga.
Carja, can I remind you that voting is now open for the Ard Corla and the boxes in the catering area. If you haven't voted, please do so as soon as possible.
Nuala McClernand, Killylan Clonmarders Common Sinn Féin Councillor for Middlester. I stand here today to speak in support of Supplementary Motion 3. The issue of the lack of respite provision for adults with learning difficulties, complex needs and challenging behaviour is well recognised by many families in the 6 counties and across Ireland. I know firsthand the importance of such services and the fact that respite provision is not a luxury for unpaid carers, but a necessity, a lifeline. My own nephew at the age of 3 was unfortunate to succumb to a virus called encephalitis. This left him with brain damage, frontal temporal lobe damage and severe epilepsy. Now as an adult, my nephew suffers from learning difficulties, complex needs and challenging behaviour. My sister, his mum, a single parent, each day delivers the best care she can for her son. But as an unpaid carer, she needs help. Like many others, respite provision for adults with complex needs and challenging behaviour is the help they need. To have this respite allows them to carry out the day-to-day small activities in life that we all take for granted. In 2023, just before Christmas, an 8-bed facility in my own area that provides short breaks for around a week for those with learning difficulties, complex needs and challenging behaviour was unable to provide these services due to the services needing to be redirected towards intensive individual support. This was a big blow to those families who relied on that service. To be told at short notice that your respite has been cancelled was gut-wrenching for those families. I would like to praise the staff in these facilities for their hard work and their dedication to caring for the service users. But this occurrence demonstrates the inadequate provision of respite services for adults with complex needs, challenging behaviour, and the need for more investment into these services. There is a demand for such services which increases year on year. As more and more children with learning difficulties, complex needs and challenging behaviour leave children's services at the age of 18 and enter into adult services, an 8-bed facility in my health trust area cannot cope with this demand, a demand that is going to increase year on year. The respite provision for adults has been for far too long underinvested, and we need to see the Minister of Health and the Executive prioritise these services and ensure that families can avail of more regular respite and a service that can cope with the demand. We need to see additional investment from the Department of Health and more forward planning so that regular provision is made available. We need to see these services protected. If the current situation continues, unpaid carers in my district and in other areas will always be among the first to pay the price. We cannot allow this to happen. Unpaid carers in our communities who rely heavily on these services need a voice to speak up for them. They need to know that we have their back, and Sinn Féin does have their back. Please support Supplementary Motion 3.
Carja, JJ McGee, North Belfast, New Lodge Common. I rise to speak in favour of Motion 30, which registers the total opposition of this Ard Fheis to the British Government Cruel Legacy Act. We all know full well the full extent of the murder sections of the British state. This Labour government is no different from the Tories, as they continue with the same policy. Through this Legacy Act, the Labour government are seeking to cover up their murderous deeds and put British state forces beyond the reach of law. The Legacy Act is an affront to families who seek justice, truth, accountability, and is an assault on their basic human rights. The message from this Ard Fheis is to the British Prime Minister is shame on you, and to remind you that our families are not giving up. We will never give up. I also want to commend and salute the resilience and dedication of the Finucane family. As they step forward in their campaign for truth, we also step forward with them. The challenge now is to ensure the rights to an inquest, to an investigation, and to pursue the civil action for all victims must be upheld and protected. That means delivering on the promises of the Stormont House Agreement legacy mechanism. I also want to say to An Taoiseach that you must stand with the victims of British state violence and continue with the interstate case against the British government. This is what victims expect and deserve. There should be no time limit on truth and justice. I urge you to support the motion.
Dahi Fitzgerald, Clifford, McCarthy, Cummin, Ardford, Kerry, speaking in favour of Motion 35. I think it's fair to say we've all witnessed the troubling turn of events that social media has thrown our way. As someone who grew up both seeing and participating in the ever-evolving world of social media, it's clear that in recent years, discriminatory rhetoric has reached new and alarming levels. We now live in a country where more people get their news from platforms rather than traditional news organisations. While much of that news is still produced by professional journalists, the way we discover it, how it's distributed, and decisions on what gets displayed, along with who profits from our online behaviour, is rapidly changing. In light of recent events, it's become obvious that the rise of the far right is closely tied to social media. The massive shift in how we consume media creates a dangerous gap, leading many to fall into echo chambers, constantly exposed to one-sided perspectives. This has resulted in the belief of false narratives, driving people from having legitimate concerns to promoting violence, not only against society's most vulnerable, but against anyone who challenges their discriminatory views. And we, as Irish Republicans, are one of their targets. Those at grassroots levels are not only believing misinformation, but teaming up with anyone who stands against our goals of a united country of equals. The importance of having strong legislation to hold social media platforms to account cannot be overstated. The longer we go without enforcing accountability, the worse the situation will become for everyone on the island. That's why I ask you to support Motion 35.
Cóide Ismitha Pippa Black, Bowen Maron Common, agus Colacanta
Schlegel, speaking in favour of motions 33 and 34, which pretty much speak for themselves. On 33, Boseran has promised to make the 64 route that runs from Galway to Derry permanently wheelchair accessible. However, wheelchair users will only be able to disembark in Galway, Sligo, Ballyshannon and Letterkenny. This means this bus will be driving past disabled residents in the towns in between. But those people will not be able to get on the bus. We suspect this situation is being replicated around the country. What is required is for the relevant county councils to commit to making all of the bus stops compatible with accessible buses. On number 34, currently the Employment Equality Act contains an exception to equal pay if the boss thinks a non-disabled worker could work faster. The truth is the variation between two non-disabled workers could be just as wide as it is between any given disabled person and any random non-disabled person. Further, there are already grants available to employers to retain disabled workers in situations where their productivity drops by 20%. The exception is discriminatory and it needs to go. Please vote in favour of motions 33 and 34. Also, we are delighted to see motions 32, 44, 49 and 50, and we would advocate for the nothing about us without us approach in all of our policies that involve disabled people.
Martin Brown, P.S. McCann, Cumming Cashel, and TD for Tipperary, and hopefully after the next election for Tipperary South, because while Leo and them talk about border polls and all that, they've stuck a line across Tipperary and made us north and south again. So bring on the challenge, Leo. I want to speak on motion 46. We've all been targeted by the so-called patriots who wrap themselves in the Irish flag, but they never bother to work in the communities they falsely claim to represent. They have a strange notion of what the fight for Irish freedom was. They seem to think that resistance was about domination, suppression and of exclusion. If they had any understanding of our history, they would know it's about the complete opposite. It's about rights. It was about the ability to go about one's own business unhindered. It was about equality and having the same rights as someone else who didn't necessarily have the same views as yourself. They also claim to care about their communities, yet we've seen their disregard for them same communities as they set fire to buildings, intimidate people who haven't the same views as them. They target libraries. They shout abuse at people due to the colour of their skin. And furthermore, they misrepresent the communities they claim to stand for. I am concerned about how people with racist views are at times becoming accepted as activists by the media. We had to be wary of this because any attempt to make that is unacceptable and dangerous. But we as a party of activists who all have a history of working within our communities, because when our communities need us, we will do all we can to assist them. It has been said that the government has not prepared to meet its international obligations. This has resulted in the government mismanaging the whole system. But because of these shortcomings, we will not be dictated to by those who have no other purpose but to create division and unrest and to seek to infiltrate our communities, with no other purpose but to blame the voiceless and the unrepresented for the problems created through poor governance that have failed communities. We must remain to our Republican principles by standing up for those in need and against those who wish to divide. If housing is the issue, blame the government. If healthcare is the issue, blame the government. But where race is the issue, that problem lies with the bigots themselves and no one else. We will not be deterred from our Republican beliefs. We will not be deterred from our Republican beliefs, and we will always punch up, not down. And just before I want to quick mention number 54, the redress scheme for the mother and baby homes. I want us to support it, and the thousands of women and children that are excluded. We need to support them because the government have turned their backs on them again, and we need that support. Cormina Mahagot.
Accorda, Paddy Bulger, Mick Murray Cumming, Clontarf, Dublin Bay North, and some of you may know that part of our area is Coolock. which is, unfortunately getting notoriety. But look, our motion might look a bit simple. It's praising comrades for what they did in response to the racist violence in Belfast. But look, we were a bit thrown by the response we got on some doorsteps. The racists were out and they were confident and they were strutting about the place. And you can feel, maybe, what do we do next? How do we deal with it? Well, look, they showed us in Belfast how to do it. You respond with authority, you respond with sincerity, and you respond quickly. Also, in our motion, we referred to work with other civil society and civic groups. It was great to see our people, and Deirdre spoke earlier and others have spoken, lining up with trade unionists on a cross-community basis, with community groups dealing with the aggression of those racists. And it's obvious from the previous speakers and from the Ard Fheis motion that we know what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with racism. We're not dealing with genuine community concern in most of these settings. We're dealing with a campaign against us and a campaign against people who don't deserve to be campaigned against. So, confident that motion 40 will be carried, which I'm speaking in favour of, and noting the Ard Fheis motion and the Cúige Moon motion, I say, we've got to say, we will deal with communities, we'll deal with GAA clubs, tennis clubs, trade unions, right? But we won't deal with self-appointed racist vigilantes. Thank you.
Accordia is Michelle Landamolahan, Michael Moore and Common. I'd like to speak on motion 55. In 2021, 416 motorcycles were stolen in the 26 counties. This number increased to 838 thefts in 2023. In the first 3 months of this year, 215 motorcycles were stolen. Most of these thefts are in Dublin by youth gangs, either stealing motorbikes to order for criminal gangs or to be used in joyriding. These thefts are carried out in daylight, and when people try to intervene, they are threatened. Thefts are carried out via a few different methods. Number one is in done deal, where they say they want to buy the bike and then they come round and rob it. They lift it off the off the street into a van. Older bikes are being started with screwdrivers and ridden away, breaking steering locks and getting towed away by another bike, and hijacking bikes while the owner is riding it. Hundreds of motorcyclists attended a protest in Dublin on the 23rd of March 2024 in Dublin, organised by the Motorcyclists of Ireland. The Garda have acknowledged that a specific operation is needed to be set up to address this, but it seems there is no interest from the Garda Commissioner or the Justice Minister to do this. As with most people in Ireland, we are looking for fairness in dealing with this criminality. We use our motorcycles not only for leisure but also for work, and should be expected them to be safe when parked up. Please support this motion. Garamakwa.
Alan Power, Mernon Byrne Cummin. I'm speaking in favour of motion 53. So much noise, hate and division and misinformation and horrible rhetoric is causing fear and hate against the LGBTQIA+ community. The far right feed off this hate and fear, and we need to tackle this head on by reaching out to communities through the hard work that us activists are well able for, unlike the far right agitators who only rely on easy tactics through social media to scare people and distract away from the failures of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. We are true Republicans that need to lead by example and support the queer community. Please support motion 53. Good Madigat.
Giadiv, Isma Grania, and I'm here on behalf of the Cork City Corner Cantor to ask for your support in favour of motion 47. This Ardèche recognises that inequalities in society are not inherent, but are caused by inequalities of power. 61% of unpaid care is provided by women. Older women often live on the margins of society with lower incomes, missing out on contributory pensions due to their years spent caring. The numbers of reported sexual offences has increased by 9.5%. Over 20% of women aged 18 to 34 don't control their own money, and the gender pay gap is 9.6%. This data is from the CSO. Building an Ireland of equals is one of Sinn Féin's core objectives, and we're calling on the government to prioritise the equality of women by restructuring government departments to have a department solely dedicated to women and equality, and to ensure there is a budget and social fund allocated, to add a module on promoting rights to safety and tackling domestic violence, to provide Gardaí with the necessary resources to promote reporting of domestic violence and the supports available, to hold Gardaí accountable to eradicate domestic violence, to hold employers accountable to eradicate the gender pay gap, and finally to provide pension parity to those who have stayed at home to raise children or care for others, and also to increase the intersectionality of government departments to ensure that the needs of women are considered and accounted for. We also call on Sinn Féin to update the membership programme to include a focus on increasing female membership and to include a mentorship module. Gur Malgat.
Díomh Comrade Tá Glorg Verdakiach to Gorún Quega Cahar, Dan Harty, Brett Malachny, Emmett Cummin Thurles. Firstly, I would like to recognise the Trojan work that the party has done to date in conjunction with survivors and their families in regards to mother and baby home institutions. I would like to make particular mention to party members who are survivors of these institutions, to Kathleen Function for her work as the chair of the Children's Committee, and to Ross Gray's Michael Donovan. Michael has been a constant advocate for this cause over the years, and I'm happy to work with him on this motion. As Choctaw Claire Curran has recently highlighted, there are major issues with the Mother and Baby Institutions Payment Scheme. Out of the 34,000 people who are eligible for compensation, only 1,300 have received payments so far. A further 24,000 survivors have been excluded from this redress scheme. People who spend 6 months or less in a mother and baby home deserve to have their human rights abuses recognised. What happened to them was wrong then, and what has happened to them now is also wrong. This motion calls for Sinn Féin, when in government, to commit to extending redress to those coldly and deliberately left outside the remit of this scheme. Accorda, these institutions were horrific places where the cruel and inhumane treatment of its internees was the order of the day. When we think of mass graves, we think of our colonial past or the horrors we hear of internationally. But unfortunately, they exist at home too. The mass graves of our children. How the commitment to cherish all of the children of the nation equally rings eerily hollow in this case. We as a society have to face up to our recent past. We need to act accordingly. We cannot reverse what has happened, but let's not continue to facilitate the cover-up and give families the small semblance of dignity and respect that a properly recorded death and marked grave can provide. Recent surveys at Sean Ross Abbey and Ross Gray have identified anomalies in the ground where many of the missing children may be buried. There has been a delay, however, in securing the funding for excavation works to occur. I'd like to take this opportunity to call on Minister Roderick O'Gorman and the Department to provide this funding immediately. To conclude, Accorda, this motion calls on Sinn Féin when in government to prioritise and fund a process that will locate the thousands of babies and children that have been hidden away. Please support motion 54. Gur míle maith go léir.
Roisin Tracy, Charlie McGlade, coming speaking to motion 32. Delegates, comrades and friends, I'm speaking today not only as a member of this party, but as someone who knows firsthand the challenges faced by people with disabilities. I wasn't always disabled. In my early 20s, I was diagnosed with a rare brain disease and multiple chronic illnesses. That experience changed everything for me, not just in how I live, but in how I see the world, navigating a system that often ignores or overlooks people with disabilities has shown me how urgent it is that we listen to the lived experiences and use them to shape real change. For too long, Ireland has approached disability through the medical model, treating people like they're problems to be solved instead of human beings with rights. But we know that people with disabilities are fully capable of living independent lives. We know because we live it every single day, yet we're still waiting for this government to catch up. The UN CRPD calls for this transformation, but Ireland has failed to ratify the optional protocol, a step that would allow people with disabilities to appeal directly to the UN when their rights are being violated. This is not a theoretical issue, it's a matter of justice and respect for the 15% of our population who deserve to have their voices heard. In Sinn Féin, we need to prioritise the rights of people with disabilities by ratifying the optional protocol the second we get into government. And, just as importantly, listening to disabled people within the party and beyond. We can't create real lasting change without centring around those most affected. Let us stand by this emotion and commit to a future where disability rights are human rights. To all those with disabilities in this room, I see you, I hear you, and I will fight alongside you and in solidarity always. Thank you.
Carja, in order to keep us on track, the speakers remaining will have 2 minutes, and that will give everyone a chance to get to the dark horse this evening to hear Satanta Folk for the fundraiser.
Carja, Sean Harty, Bretton Malachny, Emma Cummin, Dearlas Ayla, a kind fui Rooney Iver Daher Ane. I welcome the call for the pilot scheme for that explores badges for people with autism to be able to park in disabled parking spaces. It means that basically we're supposed to be an island of inclusivity and we still don't have these basic things in place. It seems like some people might think it's an outrageous overreach, to have simple things for people with disabilities. Sometimes you can't see the disabilities, like the last speaker there. We just need these things to be implemented. And basically, this motion has a lot of merit, like a lot of hidden disabilities. If we can let people park in parking spaces with disabilities, then we should also acknowledge people with autism as well. They have sensory deficits and they need to be able to get in and out of places easily. Thanks very much.
Sarah Holland, Devlin Plunkett Cumming, speaking in favour of motions 31, 35 and 39. We condemn the racists who disgrace the tricolour and will call it what it is. They haven't even the wit to realise what they are, so we'll say it out loud. They're white supremacist fascists and we reject them. Hate generates engagement and has made millions for social media companies. The lack of regulation means that a receptive audience can be bought by anyone with the resources and will to shape public opinion. The rise of the far right is fuelled online and is no accident. The companies refuse to be held accountable and their monopoly on the dissemination of hate must be broken. We also note with deep concern on Taoiseach's comments that immigrants are to blame for homelessness. This ruthless, cynical ploy to wash his hands of his own party's policy and a policy which commodified homelessness has now been taken up by other government TDs. This is straight out of the Tory playbook and makes elections a game, and the pieces on the board are human beings. We have an opportunity to stand as the vanguard for voters who want to smash the Féis, not appease them.
Thank you, Accordia. Dean McGrath, I'm speaking here in favour of motion 54 and on behalf of the Tipperary Cola Cantor. But could I just say one of the merits of waiting to speak is to see the level of politics that's in the room. Republicanism, socialism, anti-racism. This is what our party is all about. It's absolutely fantastic, and long may it last. I come from Tipperary. I'm really proud to be from Tip, and I'm really proud to be speaking on a motion that was sponsored by the Tracy Craig Cummins and the Brett McLaughlin Emma Cummins. Ross Gray and Sean Ross Abbey and Ross Gray operated from 1930 to 1970, and we believe there is about 1,000 babies buried in the ground in Sean Ross Abbey. Now, we've gotten, as previous speakers have alluded to the point where we can have these conversations, where it's highlighted. But make no mistake, the government were brought kicking and screaming to this point by survivors like Michael Donovan, by people like Catherine Corliss, and we as a party need to stand with them and go further than any government has been willing to go. We are different. This is what makes us different. Any redress scheme that cuts out 24,000 people who are survivors, is that human rights based? No. Is that rooted in fairness? No. What's it about? Money. We stand with those survivors and we stand with the people who have campaigned to bring this to where we are. We'll bring it forward. Thank you very much. Support motion 54.
Paul Donnelly, speaking for volunteer Martina Shanahan, Clonsilla, Dublin. Speaking on motion 35. Comrades, every day we see the positive aspects of social media. The connecting with old friends and keeping in touch with people you've grown up with, building communities and like tidy towns, sports and voluntary groups. But there's a deeper, negative, destructive and dark side to social media. It's toxic with racism, hatred and far-right tropes. Social media companies have a profound responsibility given the power that they have to shape the narrative. However, they are putting billions in profit ahead of people and community cohesion. With this motion, we can start to put the power back into people's hands by taking direct action, allowing citizens to sue the platforms directly. It's about fairness and it's about justice. Again, I'm asking this Ard Fheis to please support this motion, to let us send a clear message to these platforms. Sinn Féin will not tolerate hatred, racism, misinformation, intimidation and violence online or offline. We will take legislative action to support our communities and support our people, because self-regulation is no regulation. Guramaga, comrades.
Carja, a set of keys for a Mazda car have been left at the registration desk, so if you're missing your keys, you can be reunited with them there.
That's grand, Louise, they're not mine.
On you go, Louise.
The Carja, my name's Louise Kavanagh with Sheena Campbell Cummins. I'm speaking in favour of motion 32. Now, this previous speaker who spoke so beautifully and eloquently on this, it's hard to match, but I'm here as an ally to show solidarity to people who really need it. The UN CRPD optional protocol will provide a space for complaints from individuals or groups to allow a committee to investigate, report on and make recommendations on grave or systemic violations of the Convention. So you may know that the ratification of the optional protocol is a commitment in the current programme of government. In response to questions back in May 2023, Minister Anne Rabbitte stated, "It is a priority for me to ensure that the optional protocol is ratified at the earliest possible date." Now, Ireland signed up to that convention in 2007, ratified the UN CRPD in 2018, and as of today, there has been no date set. That's 17 years where some of the most vulnerable members of our society are left with little protection. And I'm going to invite you to consider, why have the government left it so long? As a nation, we pride ourselves on values of fairness and respect for human rights. Yet the reality for the people with disabilities in Ireland, as the previous speaker has stated, is stark. They often face barriers to education, employment, and even participation in public life. Ratifying the Convention sends a powerful message that we recognise the inherent worth of every person regardless of their ability. Sinn Féin will ensure that no one is left behind and that everyone, regardless of their abilities, can enjoy the rights and opportunities they deserve. Gurv Magat.
Steve, Councillor Roisin Mannion for Devlin, Plunkett, Cumming in South West Dublin. I will keep it this short. I'm calling today for your support for supplemental motion number 3. I've worked with individuals with intellectual disabilities for over 15 years and have seen firsthand the lifeline that respite can provide families who are responsible for providing care for their children and loved ones, and the fear and devastation they experience when their children turn 18 and then it becomes apparent the complete inadequacy of any sort of meaningful provision for respite. This country's over-reliance on families providing care for their loved ones with disabilities is well known, but rarely spoken about. The resounding rejection of the carers referendum earlier this year showed that the general population does know, on some level at least, that we would be lost without the incredible work these people provide, and the failure to give the bare minimum supports and breaks is simply unacceptable. I therefore strongly urge you all to support motion 3. I'm also going to speak on motion 48, if I may. Just very quickly, listening to the voices of our young people is vital to ensuring we build a better and brighter future for all. Inclusivity means everyone has a right for their voice to be heard, and Sinn Féin's commitment to self-determination should extend to all people on our island, regardless of age, gender, ethnicity, religion or disability. Thank you.
Carja is Misha Niamh Fennell, Councillor Niamh Fennell from Drum, Dardy, Clark in Dublin Midwest. I'll be speaking on motion 48 also. Young people are one of our biggest supporters in this party, but yet we are still very reluctant to involve them, to listen to them and to give their opinion due weight. I'm also a youth worker, and the young people that I work with every day inspire me. They give us solutions, they're full of creativity, they're full of strength and resilience. Our young people have insights and ideas, and we should be taking this into account. We should be listening to them and actually hear what they say. We need to actually take their opinions and ensuring that it is given due weight. This is their right. This is their right under the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. And we need to make sure as a party we listen to them, we involve them, and that we ensure their rights are recognised in this state. Gurv Magat.
Councillor William Carey, Tommy Grant Cumming, Clondalkin. And I came here today to speak on motion 48 in support of my colleague who's just spoken, thinking that she might need my support. Quite clearly she doesn't. I'm probably the one that will probably be looking for her support at some stage. Today I travelled here from Clondalkin with one of our youngest members. He's a young man sitting down there. I think he's only 17 years of age. But he's one of our most active activists in the party, in the area. And, you know, having a conversation with him on the way down, I realised, you know, how little I, as a member, listen to some of the young people in the party. It's very seldom I get that opportunity, so it was good to have that opportunity on the way down. I think too often our young people are not listened to. And, you know, in that regard, I have come here to speak in support of the motion. I want to speak also on another motion, which is motion 53, which sadly I have to say that I'm opposed to. I'm opposed to it because I don't understand exactly what position that will give us in the party and what it would commit us to. I do note, though, in motion 84, there's a commitment for the Ard Fheis to call for a delegate conference to discuss things like gender affirmation and gender equality, etc., and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that if we do reject motion 53, that we will be supporting motion 84 later on tomorrow. Thank you.
Councillor Anthony Conaghan from the Mellows, Doherty, McKee, Cumming and Finglas. Acharja, I'm looking for your support for motion 38. Freedom of speech is a fundamental human right and we must protect it. But it's also true to say that as a Republican and Socialist Party that we believe in protecting vulnerable people and vulnerable groups against hate speech and hate crimes. We will always call out racism, homophobia, transphobia and any other actions of hatred towards anyone facing exclusion, violence, persecution, discrimination or stigma. Given our own Irish history of migration around the world, it's true what others have said. You don't get to be Irish and racist. There is no place in Irish society for hatred. But in formulating legislation against hate speech, there has to be a balance of rights. The government have failed to find that balance and they've now dropped the hate speech element from their bill, and they must now admit that they got it wrong. As Republicans, we know only too well the injustice of censorship. We remember well our own politicians who were not allowed to be heard on the airwaves, and it took the legend Larry O'Toole to take RTE to court to get rid of Section 31. Acharja, curtailing freedom of speech is a dangerous weapon and can be used to suppress political activism, which we see in other countries. It's a threat to democracy, and the fact that Fine Gael have refused to understand the importance of that is worrying, but not really surprising considering their blue shirt past. Sinn Féin going forward should only support legislation brought forward to address hate speech that does not erode the right of freedom of speech. Please support motion 38.
Hello, Owen Finn, Cumann Mairead Farrell, Ingalliv, agus Samenchoch, and Kainch Fui Rún, Iver Quagahain, Ach Solianam Shin. Before I talk about the motion I'm actually here to talk about, I just want to give total support and solidarity to each and every motion against hate, against fascism, against homophobia, against transphobia, against racism, against ableism. Each and every one of those struggles needs to be something we fight for, and I just wanted to say that before I move on. But in moving on, my motion, the motion I'm here to speak about, is about incompetence and waste and a lack of accountability. I don't need to prattle through all the various different examples of the government here making a hames of things, the bike sheds and hospitals and God knows what else. But it all stems from a deeper problem. We have incompetence and we have waste, and nobody's held to account. We have real-world victims who are entitled to restitution and justice, and we have a state fighting them at every turn. When they're not making secret phone calls to genocidal regimes to say, oh, we're not going to hold you to account, they're having secret discussions about how they're not going to give people what they're entitled to here. And that's where we need to stand up against that. Motion 51 is an acknowledgement, and I support all the motions that were here about redress schemes as well. This is part of the same discussion. When we talk about a lack of accountability, it's by design. That's the problem. We talk about the OPW. No one talks about the history of the OPW. It was founded in 1831 by the British colonial regime to make their administration of our country more efficient. They put starving people to work during the famine for pittance in order to even try and sustain a living, and they simply couldn't. Maybe a colonial legacy body that covers loads of things and keeps decisions away from elected government. Maybe that's not how we want to do things. And maybe the justice system as a whole, a legacy, the British system we have in justice, having a British justice system is like having a Fianna Fáil honesty system or a Fine Gael accountability system. We are not going to do that anymore. We need nothing less than a root and branch review of justice, of accountability, and fixing how we do things in this country so nobody has to stand up here again and demand basic rights they're entitled to. Thank you very much.
Okay, Acharja tá an diasporacht Creekniha, and it falls to me now to take the vote. So everybody please get your passes ready. I'm going to take supplementary motion number 2. Nadine atá a bhábhar, show now. Endine an aye. Tá sé ghlacha. Supplementary motion 3, Nadine atá bhábhar. And then an aye, tá sé ghlacha. On Ruin 30, Nadine atá bhábhar. And then an aye, tá sé ghlacha. 31, Nadine atá bhábhar. And then an aye, tá sé ghlacha. 32, great number.
The thing about this Ard Fheis is people are running up and down, trying to have their say, trying to contribute. They have motions they care about, they have things they care about. And you heard things there. I mean, I was particularly impressed by Roisin Tracy and her argument about how UN laws we've signed up to are meant to give people basic human rights protections if they have a disability. And someone else mentioned how it's 17 years since we signed up to that and we still haven't implemented those rights. Sorry, I'm going to start getting moved by what I'm hearing. But that's why people care about this Ard Fheis and coming together in this fashion to make decisions. And so you see now people are voting on those positions. And this is adopting the policy Sinn Féin will now progress, whether in government or in opposition. And this Ard Fheis is demonstrating Sinn Féin's readiness for government, the fact that we have plans to fix crises that have been going on and on for years, and mismanagement agus an cinál nabhrialtas atá gceist an tír seo stocha ó híomh cearta an duine de agus sin an sesiún seo bhain sé le cearta Kirt agus cór cearta sa stocha sin an focail agus conas tacu lo siúd atá leochalach lo siúd atá híos leis agus is tócha gur beidh sin an spruch atá ag Sinn Féin a gcónaí ná seasa suas don drám sin agus seasa suas son cearta go mbeadh pobl agus stát bunaithe cearta an duine agus sin I suppose an differ atá idir Sinn Féin agus an rialtas ratha so sin é agus is tócha tar éis an sesiún seo agus na bhótaí tuchaí críoch leis an lei ach bailile ag an buireach agus ag an Ard Fheis ba muidir teachtarach arás maidin amárach chun plé anamh maidile conas tacu lenar deanga lenar gultar lenar bobal gailteachta lenar naireacht conas dína spráige bheith páirteach in san gultúir agus conas bheith úlmhínach fin gultúir tá muid tar éis mar fáirtí buséad úlmhínach sprágúil a ógurt don airnáil sin 60 milliún don alíonn agus 63 milliún ceapan don ghaeilge don teanga agus rud atá I bhfad chun tosaigh an gcarchuige tá an rialtas faoi láthair. So this is the wrapping up of today's event, I suppose, but there will be another day tomorrow. This is the end of the session, like I mentioned, on rights and justice and fairness, I suppose equality. But we'll still be talking about fairness tomorrow. We'll be moving on to a session in the morning about supporting arts and culture and heritage and language and that kind of anti-colonial spirit that still is evident at these events. I mean, you hear people there with their impassioned speeches about tackling injustice, about tackling colonialism and fascism. And that's where tomorrow we'll focus on how do we support the arts, the culture, the language as part of that broader framework. So Louise is making sure, Louise O'Reilly, on her birthday, Bretlos on Arish, Louise, she's telling everyone about the fundraiser taking place tonight. And tomorrow, of course, we'll have some fringe events during the lunch break where there will be a kind of a chance for people to take part in other meetings. She's explaining it right now. I might let her do it rather than me.
On the 21st century councillor in local government. So safe home and enjoy the socialising.
Wishing
be back
everyone
here
well and hoping to have
10
fun socialising.
tomorrow.
And we'll all, I'm sure, be out celebrating Bretla, Louise O'Reilly, agus Ard Fheis fi Cara. Gur míle maith gléir as teacht agus by Mizrash, Maidin amárach, 10 o'clock a chuoine úsle. 10 o'clock tomorrow. The fun begins again. Don't miss it. Thanks for coming.